I'll try it again. Good evening. Good evening. If I could have your attention, we're going to get started now. First, I want to welcome everybody for coming out tonight, and that includes all the candidates that were brave enough to put their names forward. We thank them for that, and I thank all the residents that are interested in their local government and want to come out tonight and get to know their candidates better. Opportunity to ask questions as well. I'm going to start by just giving you a bit of an overview of how the evening will unfold. And again, my name is Dennis Back. I'm going to be your moderator for the evening. The format for tonight's meeting largely follows that from 2014 for any of you that were here at that time. In 2018, of course, it was acclamation, so there was no all candidates meeting. This evening will be broken into two segments. Firstly, the mayoral candidates, and that will be followed by the councillor candidates. The first segment with the mayoral candidates will run till about 8:15. So at 8:15, we'll take a short break, a very short break, and transition over to the councillor candidate section. Each segment will consist of candidate opening comments, and that'll be 4 minutes each. And then each candidate will be asked to respond to the same set question. There'll be two questions that will be posed to the candidates, and they will each have 2 minutes to respond. That in turn will be followed by questions from the floor, and that's where anybody that's interested in putting a question to the candidates had an opportunity to put their name in the box for the draw. And the draw is necessary just because there's only so much time tonight, and in the interest of fairness, if we put the names in a bag or in a box and do it by random draw, then everybody will be treated the same, and those that are drawn will come forward to the mic and pose their question to the candidate of their choice, and that candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. Each candidate also has what I call, well, there are 3 wild cards. And how that works is that if a question is put to a certain candidate, and when the other candidates say, I would like to have responded to that question as well, even though it was put to my friend, they can use one of their wild cards to also respond to that. So they've got 3 cards that they can use during the course of the evening. They don't have to use them, but they can use them. So if I talk about wild cards, that's what I'm referring to. And have each of the candidates been given their cards? It looks like they have. Good. And after the questions from the floor, each candidate will be given 1 minute to make closing comments. So again, we'll start with the mayoral candidates. At 8:15, we'll take a break, and that will be followed by the councillor candidates. And if at the end of the evening, if by some chance we've got time left over, and somebody wants to circle back and ask one of the mayoral candidates a further question, we'll allow that, but it'll kind of depending on what time of the evening it is. So as the candidates, I think I've already met them all and mentioned to them that the speaking order has been chosen randomly, and for each part, it differs. So again, it's been done fairly and randomly. One other thing, timing. I've brought with me this evening Janine Bertina, and Janine and I used to work together years ago, and when I told her I was coming out to Lions Bay, I convinced her to come and give me a hand. She will be our timekeeper and will be indicating when the candidate is reaching the end of their time, and I will signal to the candidate. I would ask all candidates to be respectful of the time, and once I indicate to you that your time is up, if you kindly wrap your comments up fairly quickly and not drag it on. And tonight I'm hoping that we're here to, it's going to be an interesting, informative evening. I know everybody will be respectful of one another, and I'll really appreciate that. I should also note that the school trustees are not present this evening due to what I understand is a conflicting engagement. However, I'm told that they provided election brochures that are available at the back of the room, or at least they had the opportunity to do so if that was something they wanted to do. Okay. Any questions from the candidates before we get started? No? Just one from Ron.
Just because I'm an older guy, could you explain the wild card piece one more time and what the time for response is?
Yeah, 2 minutes. The wild card is, for example, if there's a question from the floor put to you, but Ken is saying, gee, I'd like to respond to that. Or Tamara. So Tamara says, I would like to respond to that, but the question was put to Ron. Then she can use her wild card and she can respond to that question as well. So you get 3 of those opportunities through the evening.
You have to wait for Ron to respond first.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's for, that again, that's only pertains to the questions from the floor for that segment.
So you have to wait for Ron to respond before you express that
The
you'd like to use a wild card?
That's correct.
Wild card right away?
No. So the question from the floor, when they put their name in the hat, it's saying, I want to direct my question to a certain candidate. So that candidate will be given the first opportunity to respond, and then any of the other candidates can use their wild card. So that said, the order, sorry, yes?
Just one last question.
Yeah.
You're about to give us the rotation order. Do the questions go in the same rotation as the 4 minutes question?
Just say that again. I didn't quite catch
The
that.
questions that you're going to ask everyone go in the same rotational order as our opening remarks?
No, each segment, each part of it is different.
Each one randomly.
I will introduce that when we get to that part. So for the, okay,
The questions that are asked of Mayoral candidates, just to confirm, are different sets of questions that are asked of the Councilor candidates?
same questions.
Same questions.
There's 2 questions for everybody.
Got it. Okay.
All right, well, let's get started. So,
One more question.
oh, okay, one more question. Oh, I should acknowledge that,
I just want to say there's seats up front if somebody wants to come in from the back. Like there's
anybody who wants to sit down, there are some seats up front.
3 seats.
I should make mention that Nicole Lund was unable to be with us this evening, and so she has asked Karen Jeffrey to come in on her behalf and offer the opening comments. She won't be staying to answer questions, but she'll be making the opening statements. Okay, starting then with the mayor segment. Ken Berry, you're up first, and you got 4 minutes.
Hello? Hi, you can hear me back there? Okay. Let me just adjust that. Okay. Hello, my name is Ken Berry, and I'm running to be your mayor. I'd like to thank the current council for their time over the last 4 years when no one else would step up. I'd like to thank my family and friends and new candidates for caring enough to step forward in this next chapter of our village. I'd also like to thank the staff for all the time that they put in and the effort. I think that's important to recognize them. The next 4 years will no doubt look vastly different than the last 4 years. Just think about the volatility and impact the last 2 years alone has given us. As a result, I believe we must manage and operate our village differently in preparation for the future. I would like to share the depth of my management experience as a CEO, a leader, and a team player. My family and I came to this village 12 years ago. We quickly integrated ourselves into the village. Saxon at the local elementary school, our family having regular school functions and fundraisers at our home. Nicole helping out with the events committee and now the block watch coordinator. While I was out doing what I do best, building a business and the team it takes to make it successful. I learned teamwork early in my life. My 3 brothers and I grew up in Burnaby, where we had 2 bunk beds in 1 room. Life was simple. We focused on schoolwork and hockey. As a result, the 3 of us boys received full-ride scholarships to Denver University. For the next 10 years, I honed my leadership and team skills, traveling the world representing Canada, competing at the highest levels in the Olympic Games, and I was proud to represent Canada. I also played in the NHL with some of the greatest athletes in the world. Transitioning from sports to business was challenging, but it was rewarding. Most recently, I served as CEO of a company from startup through permitting with all levels of government, through construction with a capex of $60 million, and into operations with a staff of 200 people that did $84 million in revenue prior to myself being bought out a year and a half ago. People have asked me, why am I running for mayor? Over the last few years, there's been significant unrest. Knocking on doors this last week has reinforced that. There's a lot of citizens that are concerned. I now have the time and passion to give back to the community, so I'm looking forward to that. As a former CEO, I bring the leadership and team skills that will help our village move together, move forward together. For example, the ability to develop strategy and budgets, attract committee members and volunteers, work with community stakeholders, access public funding, work with all levels of governments, and work with NGOs and First Nations, and manage employees to set and meet expectations as we move forward. Our village deserves nothing but the best. As your mayor, I respect open and transparent government. I intend to restore fiscal management and stop overspending. Revitalize and ensure the infrastructure meets our future needs, protect our forests and Howe Sound, of which we all love. I may not have all the answers this evening, but I can assure you I'll listen and surround myself with the talent to resolve the challenges our village is sure to encounter as we move forward. If elected, I pledge I'll bring the full weight of my experience as a professional athlete, as a business executive, a CEO, to the role of Lions Bay Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next, we're going to hear from Ron McLaughlin.
Good evening to all of you here at Broughton Hall, and hello to those watching at home. I'm Ron McLaughlin, and I hope you'll give me an opportunity to be your mayor for a second term. When I moved to Lions Bay in 1979, I had a lot more hair. I've grown it down a bit, but I also had no roots in the village. Since then, Mary and I have raised 3 sons here and made countless friends. Like you, we've grown to love this place with its tight-knit small village community where people wave on the street and share a summer's day at the beach. I've spent the past 11 years serving our village to help support and build this amazing community, 8 years as councillor and the last 4 as mayor. The role of municipal government isn't fancy. Its purpose is to foster community, listen to residents, deliver core services like garbage collection, and maintain infrastructure to make lives easier and to support property values. That means new parks and playgrounds, sidewalks, water and sewer utilities, maintenance of our road and bridge system, and safety services. Since the village started 50 years ago, it's become harder and harder for a small municipality to maintain core services, and much of our original infrastructure has grown old and even dangerous. So as mayor for the last 4 years, I've made it a priority to rebuild and maintain. How have we done this? First, we are now in an improved cash position of $3.1 million. That equates to over 1.5 times our annual general tax collection. Secondly, over $6.75 million in infrastructure is either completed or in process, with about $2.5 million cash raised without taxation. Numbers of this magnitude have never been accomplished in the village before. This success is due to thoughtful decisions, focus, hard work, and advocacy. For example, I have been involved in the Beach Park project for 6 years as chair of the initial resident committee, through failure in our first grant application, to leading our success in the second request, achieved through strong advocacy by staff and I to senior government. Similar hard work led to a 100% $500,000 grant to retrofit the Clatt Building Fire Hall. I've also negotiated 75% grants from TransLink for transit projects, up from the previous 50%. I'm working on 100% grants now with and for smaller communities like ours. I expect this will be approved at the Translink Board budget talks in 2023. As for safety services, Lions Bay Fire and Rescue leadership and responsiveness remains in effect. Our emergency services team now comprises of an emergency program coordinator and 2 co-directors, all of whom are residents, along with a revitalized support team. Lastly, even with a heat dome last summer and a drought this year, our improved water infrastructure and practices have allowed us to stay at level 2 throughout. These things matter. They make our lives easier by providing amenities and needed services. They also support property values because buyers know the village is well built and focus on keeping it that way. I know Kim is here, ask a realtor. Core services and infrastructure will continue to be a focus if you elect me for a second term. I will also work to engage with every one of you on a new official community plan in 2023. We need to come together to decide what our village's vision and priorities are, and we will engage with you area by area, street by street, house by house to hear from you. I wish I could go on. You can find more of my ideas from my handout, which is at the back of the room, or on my platform online, which will be there tomorrow morning. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you, Ron. And next we have Tamara Leisure.
Do you mind if I put this here, Fred? Just for a second. Check, check. Okay. All right. I'm going to move over here because I want to include the people who are outside. I'll get to this, baby, in just a second. Sorry? Okay. Well, hello, Lions Bay. How many of you are from Brunswick Beach? Put up your hand. Hello, everybody's outside in Brunswick Beach. Oh, a couple over here. Calvin Grove? Calvin Grove. And everybody else is from Lions Bay Original Village, yes? Put up your hand if you're from the Original Village. Okay, this is a great assembly. So congratulations to you for coming out tonight, because I don't think we've gathered in this way since building of the divided highway, really. My name is Tamara Leger, and I'm running for mayor of Lions Bay. I love Lions Bay, and I think you do too. I love our rural village and the way it is now, and the way it was when I moved here 22 plus years ago. More recently, the community is being replaced with bureaucracy, unnecessary costs or ballooning taxes, volunteerism is being hampered, and I love this rural community. I treasure its traditional values, and I'm looking to return it to the essence of what it was always been: low taxes, low overhead, and strong spirit of volunteerism, firmly guided by our rural green OCP. I only have 4 minutes, okay? So for me, these 4 minutes are divided into 2 really important questions, and this is the election before you, in my opinion. Now, question number 1, or rather statement number 1, fiscal responsibility. Really sincerely consider that at the ballot box. You're behind a secret curtain. No one, including your friends or family, can see how you vote. Vote with your heart. And did you know that by reducing admin headcount by 2 to 3 people, that will be a cost savings of in excess of $280,000? This is equivalent to adding 80 new homes with their property tax base. So to get that cost savings, you have to add 80 new property tax homes. That's not people, that's homes, okay? So who here is in favor of headcount, internal admin headcount reduction? Raise your hand, just raise your hand. Okay, so we're not in the majority, that's fine. Now the big one, we recently regained our rural designation, which is finally in alignment with our official community plan. Previous mayors explored densification as if we were not a rural community and opening up our OCP. This is a pure densification plan with an aim for a quick flip income for a few who want to subdivide and sell, and a lifestyle loss for everyone else who stays. Okay, so here is exactly where my platform differs from that of the other mayoral candidates, why I believe I am your only reasonable choice for mayor. Again, here's exactly, I'm committed to our OCP, our rural designation, and the results of last October's Have Your Say. Now here's a riddle. If you're having a dinner party and there's 4 people, and you can cut the cake into 4 equal parts with 2 cuts, right? Everybody can do that. Now 4 additional people knock at your door, and they each want to have an additional, an equal piece of cake too. How do you do that? Raise your hand if you know the answer. It's not an embarrassment. This is a simple home economics question. You cut it like this, right, ladies? And then you cut it through the middle, and you've got 8 equal pieces. But to divide the cake any further, you're not cutting equally, you're not giving equal space to all. So think about that when you're looking at densification. Not everybody's going to experience it similarly. There's going to be inequity.
Tamara, could you wrap up your
Yeah.
comments, please?
So, in summary, my experience is the biggest, I've done a lot, but this is a Microsoft Ship It Award for version 1.0 Ship It Award for Softimage GS, which is a nonlinear editing system that exists on all your cell phones. This is my 3rd child. This is something that's ubiquitous on every handheld device. It lets you edit, add in music, and make a little video photo show for your families. It takes budgeting, it takes planning, it takes dedication, it takes teamwork. And I think that Lions Bay deserves to be Lions Bay. It's a rural community. We can be fiscally responsible, fiscally prudent, and stay as we are. Thank you.
Now we're moving into that part of the program where I'll be posing a question that each of the mayoral candidates will be responding to. You'll each have 2 minutes to respond, and the order of speaking is, again, varied from the opening, and it starts with McLaughlin, Leger, and Barry. Starting with Ron, if you want to come up to the mic. Or if you want, come up to the mic because I'm going to pose the question to you now.
Get organized here.
And the question is this.
Just a second.
Yeah, take your time. We're
good
here
to
all
go.
night. Ready? In light of the recent housing needs assessment study conducted by the Village of Lions Bay, what do you see as the critical housing needs in Lions Bay, if any?
Thank you very much for the question. That's a really good one. And I've written to the community about 70 times in the village update under my mayor's message. And throughout that, we've highlighted the infrastructure master plan, different studies, but also the housing study as well. But taking that away, because if you don't go to the link, the reality is this: we have an aging population. They'd like to stay in place, age in place. We need firemen. We need rental accommodation for them. There is none. People want to have their children here. They would like carriage houses. I think this is something that the official community plan is going to investigate and find out that this is something that the community wants. There's this odd idea that Lions Bay is going to look like the Brentwood Mall skyline. I really don't see it that way. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Ron. And now I just had signal from Tamara that she would like to answer the same question. So let's just go over that again. There, if anybody has a wild card, can use the wild card. Oh, wait a second, sorry. You know what, I apologize. You showed me the wild card and I jumped on it. My apologies. Tamara, you're up next to speak anyway, so.
Okay, let's regroup. Oh, it is, so it is,
So that was the question. The one question to each of the candidates.
Okay.
You've answered the question, so you can sit down now, Ron.
okay.
Next, Tamara, if you'd like to take the mic. It's not a wild card, but you're the second speaker.
So it's the same housing needs, right? Can you just?
Yeah, I'll have to read the question again, just to be sure. In light of the recent housing needs assessment study that the village undertook, what do you see as the critical housing needs in Lions Bay, if any?
Okay. Housing needs for Lions Bay. Lions Bay doesn't have a housing issue. We have an affordability issue. That's what people generally push back. There's lots of housing stock. There's housing stock for sale. There's lots of rentals when people post. It's an affordability issue. All right? We don't actually have space to build because to actually add in densification rental units, you have to go from septic to sewer. You can't build houses on top of septic systems, nor can you, and to build a condo, you have to have a sewer system. So guess where that goes? It either goes to Calvin Grove, or you have to add infrastructure, which is like 10 million to 30 million conservatively, to add in a septic system in Lions Bay, or in Tiny Brunswick Beach, which doesn't make sense because there's no space and there's only like a small number of houses. So where's it going to go? You're talking about a major infrastructure spend before you even get into the build. On top of that, you have a topographical issue, environmental issue in Lions Bay. We are not buildable. We can't expand. It doesn't make sense, and we're going to all slide down the mountain. So densification doesn't make sense. The other reason why densification doesn't make sense is because West Vancouver's doing it better. They have Cypress Park Estates that's going out with 7,000 units. If that doesn't get passed, British Properties Association owns 5 lots or five parcels that will be developed with townhomes and multi-family dwellings, mixed-use housing. We can't compete with that on that scale. And this is information that should have come forward to council from the mayor, from the Metro meetings, and the Section A meeting that was happening. This is information that our community, our whole community, should be part of, and we're not.
Tamara, can you wrap up now, please?
So we don't need it. We don't need it because West Van's doing it, Squamish is doing it, and we can't afford to build the sewer and infrastructure system to do it.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ken Berry.
Okay, first I'd like to let you know that I'm not backed by any developers. So I think there's some rumors going around that perhaps myself and other candidates are here to develop some high rises. And I think you may have seen my website, which has some cartoons on it. And unfortunately, there's a couple cartoons on there which will be changed shortly. But I am for reviewing ideas and opportunities for seniors to have transitional housing. However, the subject to that is you've got to have water, you've got to have sewer, and if a developer has some ideas on that, those are going to be the benchmarks that they have to pass. I'm not afraid, I don't have the vocabulary, can't get something done, because if we need a sewage plant, we'll look at those opportunities. If we need more water, we'll look at those opportunities. I've been in business before. We've had to develop projects in the desert. We've drilled wells. You know, I see 6 wells from here to Squamish, and I don't know a lot about them, but I'll find out more about them once I get in, should I get in. But what I'd like to say is that there is opportunities, and I think entry-level housing and transitional housing need to be looked at, but we need to do that through the OCP, and we need to visit it and talk as a community and poll where we want to go. It shouldn't just be one special interest group, it should be the whole community that makes that decision. And so I'm in favor of polling the community, whether it's through a referendum or town hall meetings, and just find out what everyone would like to see and how we'd like to advance this community. I'm not in favor of doing a development up on High Street and trying to push something through before we've talked to the community about it. And just to add, I've had children and adults coming down to my house for 6 years using our washrooms, okay? And there were community members that were willing to donate their time and volunteer to help with washrooms and build facilities at that park. So I am very much for improving the park, but fiscally responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So that completes the response to question 1. We have a second question, and the Tamara, you're going to be the first respondent to the question. If you want to come up, and then I'll pose it to you. So the question is, given the infrastructure deficit identified in the asset management plan, how would you propose to fund future asset replacement?
Very great question, right? So we have a crumbling infrastructure, right? Put up your hand if there's an issue on your street. Yeah? I live on Timber Top, so I kind of drive all the way up, yeah? How about Ocean View? Who lives on Ocean View? Yeah, you have a drainage issue, right? So we all know that. We're all family here. What about Bayview? Anyone live on Bayview? Put up your hand if you live on Bayview. Anybody live on Bayview? You guys are due for repaving. You've been waiting for your repaving for like forever. Okay, so we've got these needs, right? These are like kids need shoes, kids need pants, and they've grown out of their tops and their socks don't fit. Then we're spending money now on a Kelvin Grove connector project that connects the village, that's an existing trail that women, like how many old hikers have hiked this with their kids on their backpacks? You don't hike it, you hike it alone, right? Like you hike it if you're just going hiking without kids, while the kids are at school, or you don't have kids, or that's when you hike it. Because if you're going to the connector to go to the beach, you've got stuff, right? We all know this, mums, you've got stuff. You got the stuff for the beach, and the stuff to eat, and the stuff in case of an emergency, and you need the car in case you need to get home because of you're at the beach with a kid. So we're repaving the connector project at a cost of $270,000. But we still haven't paved Bayview, and we have a drainage issue on Ocean View. Plus we've got these PRVs that are just the elephant in the room. Plus we've got other really important stuff that we don't want to get to and play because we have guests here. So yes, we have needs. Let's look after our needs. This is why most of us newbies are here, because all but one on council hasn't been looking after our needs. They've been inventing wants. They've been going after wants that we don't need. We don't need a $1.2 million playground at the beach. We need a washroom repair. It's a washroom reno. Who here has done a washroom reno? Put up your hand.
Thank you.
It's not that hard.
Thank you, Tamara. Your time is up. Much appreciated. Next speaker is Ken Berry.
I think we all agree that the infrastructure is critical to our town. And I was just on the phone with the mayor of Anmore yesterday, and he told me what their issue was 10 years ago. They had infrastructure problems not unlike ours. 10 years ago, they were bankrupt. Now they're sitting with infrastructure completed and 10 million in the bank. And I asked him, how did you do that? How were you able to do that when we, here in Lions Bay, we're struggling with that? We've been struggling over the last 4, 8, and probably terms before that. And he said, we called on our volunteers. We reached out to the community, and we called on the experts within the community. And he said, and we stopped using consultants. He said, we started... He said, we started to call upon our staff. And that's that team that we have. We don't need to build it out anymore. I asked him, I said, and what are your staffing costs and your operational costs? And he said, they're 1.2 million. And I said, gosh, ours are up at 2 million a year. So I think there's an opportunity here to call on the experts within our community. Our infrastructure committee is non-existent. I can't get an answer whether they're actually on board or not, and they don't know. But they will tell me that they haven't been called upon and there's been barriers put up in front of them when they've tried to communicate with our staff. I don't blame it on the staff, I blame it on the structure and the facilitators there. So I think we need to call on the experts within our community to get the job done, and that's what I'll do if I'm mayor.
Thank you, Ken. And now we'll hear from Ron.
Thank you very much. I do have a plan, I'll get to that, but you should know that the Mayor of Vanmore, John McEwen, is an extremely good friend of mine. And he called me after the call from my colleague here, and that's not quite the exchange he gave me. As to where they got their financial position, it was because they invoked an infrastructure tax in 2008. They now have over $10 million in cash. As to the comment about the lower cost of staff, Vanmore's hooked up to the Metro water system. They don't have any looking after, they don't have the filtration issues and all the rest of that. They also are hooked up to the sewer parts too, so they don't have the maintenance of the plant and all the rest of that. And when they don't have the water directly from Metro, they also have wells, independent on their large acreage. That's a different issue. Let's go back to the issue of sustainable infrastructure and finances. On my platform statement, there's four things we've got on the go, and I won't repeat it too much, but the obvious fast things to do are the Lions Bay Beach Park. We need to do it now, and it's a key feature of the community, and make it accessible and family-friendly. We want it finished by the May long weekend. Secondly, the CLAT building, $500,000. Our public safety building is the most important structure in the area. The Lions Bay Connector, while we've got a great opportunity here, the plan still needs to be revisited by the community if it's going to be proceeded. Lastly, and this is the big one, it's Bayview Road drainage and water improvements. It's some $2.9 million almost, and over a $2 million grant. This is what I'm going to be working on next year. This is a dangerous flooding and ground area along Bayview Road, and there's insufficient fire flow to go to the school. The regulations are much higher than we can provide. This project is of high importance. To the revenue ideas, let's get really talking straight about this. Council has had carriage homes presented in front of us. There's over 6 to 8 of them. I get calls every week on this. We should be moving to redensify to larger lots for 8 residential carriage homes, which, if provided, would increase fee revenue, tax revenue, utility revenues, all at no existing cost to villagers. This also facilitates aging in place rental and transition housing. It's a pretty easy hit, and it's low-lying fruit. Next,
Ron, could you wrap your comments up, please?
Thank you very much. There's more to go, but I'll go to the next one, and that's the piece of property on Ocean View Road. We've sold 2 properties already, generating over $2 million. The Ocean View Road property could be converted to a lot or lots after sold through community engagement. That's the next thing I do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So that concludes the 2 questions for the mayoral segment, but where we're going to move to next is the questions from the floor. So for those members of the audience that put their name in the bag, I'm going to ask Jeannie if she would pull out the first name. It's been randomly shaken up really good. So the first person that we've drawn the name for that wants to ask a question, Karen, is it Dyer? Okay, Karen, would you come forward to the mic, please? I would just remind you, you got 30 seconds to put your question. And
I can do it.
which candidate are you putting your question to?
Oh, and I can select a mayoral candidate?
This is the mayor's segment. So it's
Okay,
just one
so
of the
I
three
think I'll
mayors.
ask Ken. Ken, Lions Bay, until the last 5 years, was our little quiet secret on the mountain. And we have been discovered in the past 5 years, and in particular over the pandemic, as a absolutely major tourist destination. The traffic along Mountain Drive up above on Sunset is completely untenable. I'm wondering if you become the mayor, would you support seeking funding from the provincial government, beautiful British Columbia, or even the federal government to fund a parking lot on public land down closer to the highway to redirect some of this traffic? Thanks. Do you want me to?
So Ken, you've got 2 minutes to respond, and then let me just clarify, because I did kind of make a mistake at the beginning. Any other mayoral candidate that also wants to respond to that question can use one of their wild cards when you're finished.
Thank you for that question. Excellent question. In my door knocking, and I haven't made it through the village, I hope to get to everyone's door before this vote on the 15th. But I have made it at least around to just about 175 doors to date. And I started up on Sunset, and I was quite shocked, and I think the residents were happy to unload their experiences on me, and it wasn't pleasant. I've heard a lot of sort of comments about how our parking revenues have been over the top, and this has been a tremendous initiative. And what we're finding with the traffic up there is we've got hikers that are coming up to the top, turning around, ripping back down the hill. The hikers that do make it up into our watershed are coming back, having tailgate parties, defecating next to driveways, and it's just not pleasant. We've got at least 3 of the residents that I knocked on their doors said, if this doesn't change in the next 6 months, I'm moving. And that's sad to hear. So I fully support looking for alternative areas to park. And of course, the gravel pit would be a natural. And I'm sure that's been talked about many times over the years about different facilities down there. But I think that we have to reach out to the government agencies. I've done that in the past. I've gone through permitting exercises with state, city, and federal level, so I'm not afraid of that. But I would call on our experts within the village to call on their help for this project. But we need to do something to change that. The revenues are not worth our citizens' aggravation.
Thank you, Ken. Karen, you can take your seat. Yeah, you don't need to. And now we have the other 2 candidates. Both have indicated they want to use a wild card. So first, Tamara. You have 2 minutes as well.
Great question, Karen. Awesome. I support everything Ken said. It's fantastic. Tree, wildlife, and marine conservation model, that is what I believe we need to hold fast and hold tight to, as well as develop a comprehensive outsider management strategy with hikers, parking, and the beach, everything dovetailed together. But we are surrounded on 3 sides by green space, municipal green space and Crown land, and we need to be doing more and leveraging our 2050, our Metro 2050 vision as Lions Bay being part of the lungs and the heart of recreation within the whole GVRD Lower Mainland area. We are that place. They need to help us, and we need to start talking amongst ourselves and gathering our local expertise of Lions Bay Search and Rescue, who get call-outs all the time and we are overrun with Tunnel Bluffs, gets 1,000 hikers a week. 1,000 hikers a week. That's insane. We need help, but we need to know what kind of help we want, and we as a village need to come together to start having this type of conversation so that we get to manage and choose the management strategy. We have an incredible brain trust in this community, and we need to rely on it and access it, both reactivating the infrastructure committee, but other worthwhile committees as well, because we can do this. But let's hold fast to who we are and stay the course. Let's keep Lions Bay, Lions Bay.
Thank you. And Ron has also indicated he wants to use a wild card, so you're up. Yeah.
question again? From Karen, it was about limiting parking. On that, there is no ability to limit parking coming to our streets. We're not a gated community. That's the sad fact. And you're right, we are discovered. Unfortunately, at this moment, there is no place to relocate parking. If the suggestion is that the vehicles are located in the Brunswick Hill area, just off the highway to divert hiker traffic from our streets to the area, I'm afraid this answer to be a yes is going to be a very hard one. This comes from staff and my discussion with the province on a Crown grant next to where the fire department's training and practice compound is. They have assets in, that's the province has assets in the area, and they don't want unfettered access to the area. The fire chief also doesn't want people in the area. From a practical standpoint, we don't want to manage sanitation problems in the area like we have in the Lions Trail, garbage left around like at the trailheads and at Tunnel Bluff, or facilitate campers, tenters, tailgate parties, or increase the chance of a wildfire in a remote area. I would work more on speeding on the roads. 2 years ago, we worked actively with residents in Brunswick, thank you, Kelly Taylor, to make a turnaround, reduce traffic onto Brunswick's narrow road, and better and clearer signage were implemented to reduce speeding and congestion. Starting in Brunswick and now throughout the village as we move them around, we've got digital display screens. You may have seen Mr. Happy Face, unfortunately you, Riley, Mr. Sad Face, telling you your speed. And they don't tell us who is driving, but they tell us how many people travel past and the range of speeds. A parking plan review is done annually by staff and reviewed by council, and this has taken place very aggressively for the last 2 years, and some of you have participated. We try to make beneficial changes where possible. What we haven't done is increase the number of speed bumps in the village. This is the single most effective way to reduce speed. Unfortunately for locals in a very short time, they come to hate speed bumps. Council has decided not to increase the number of speed bumps at this time. If this is something that would appeal to you in your neighborhood, please contact us when we review the parking plan and bring it open to the public and for a review in late November. And I encourage you to join council and participate in the discussion on this matter. Having a trial one in place,
you wrap up your comments, please?
Thank you. Having has got the concurrence of your local neighborhood. After a while, we could see whether it's effective and perhaps extend the program. Thank you very much.
The second name that has been drawn out of the bag is Carmen Leeson. So Carmen, if you want to come up, and once you posed your question, you're welcome to sit down.
Sure. So
Who do you want to put your question to?
I would actually, well, I was actually probably
Start
Tamara. It would be the one I'd like to ask.
Say it again.
Tamara,
Tamara? Okay, come on up, Tamara.
can I just have my question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Listening to each of you, I know that this role that you're applying for essentially is a very challenging role. So I challenge each of you to think about using a wild card. Tell me how each of you are going to prioritize the needs of the community with not only a balanced perspective, but I also would like to know what your action plan would be. Because we're hearing textbook answers to specific questions, needs or wants, as I've heard. But in the big scheme of things, there's more people here tonight than I've ever seen on a council meeting, which I'd encourage the village to do so more often, because we seem to come up for this, but we're not on the calls. So again, that would be my question. What would be, how would you prioritize the needs of the community with a balanced perspective? And what would that action plan look like? Thank you.
Thank you for this amazing question. If you don't already have a copy of my platform, you can get it on tamaraleger.com. There's also paper copies floating around, and it talks about different areas. But you're absolutely right. So this is my action plan. These are the core areas. And I would also like to remind everybody, the mayor is one of 5 people sitting on council. So you are a team member. So what I personally want doesn't matter. I am your eyes and ears, as are 4 other people that you elect to serve you. And we serve at your will. We have a budget, and we set priorities. I am very big on transparency and communication. I would post things and then do surveys. I've done 4 Survey Monkey surveys on priorities and gathering feedback from anybody who wants to participate. But yeah, in terms of an action plan, so my priorities are infrastructure prioritization and asset management. There's a team in the office that sets a lot of this stuff. There's grants that are in flow, there's things you can apply for. This is the bread and butter of our works department and quite a few staff members in office, okay? Sustainable finances. We have not 1 but 2 accountants in our office. One is I think they're both CPAs. For sure Pam Rook is, and I'm not sure about Haley Cook, I believe, is also has a finance background. But we have lots of good bookkeeping. But we need to reduce our spending. We need to look at our drop downs, our accounts payable. The devil's in the details. We really need to drill down, and we need to not spend if it's not prioritized, and we need to spend in priority order. So I would only spend in priority order, and I would look at things and discuss with council in a transparent manner. We would have a blueprint, a march forward plan, and we would just simply follow it. And if we would need to adjust, we would adjust because something would come up. This stuff isn't magic. You don't just magically decide you're going to do something like a connector project and go find the money and say, I'm going to just move $70,000 over from, I don't know.
Tamara, can we wrap up?
So
please?
how I work, let me just demonstrate. So for Club IntraWest.
Can we wrap up our comments, please?
Yes, this is how I work. From a flow chart. And then each one has contingencies. And then a budget is attached to different departments. And then you distribute it. And then you have timetables, and you have attachables, and you have dependencies, and people build their vacations around it, and you schedule people on and you schedule people off. But everything is on a chart, a work plan, Microsoft
Thank you very much
projects,
for your
a
comments.
scheduling software.
Thank you very much. Do either of the other candidates wish to respond to that? If not, we'll move to the next speaker. Next question. This will be wild card if you were going to speak.
The question was about respectful engagement. Excuse me.
Did you want that question repeated to the extent that I've got it written here? It says, and this is from Carmen Leeson, says, tell me how you're going to prioritize the needs of the community with a balanced perspective, and what is your action plan?
Well, I must say that my platform, which will be on the website tomorrow, is about 7 pages. I can't categorize it, but it goes through a whole bunch of financial requirements, our infrastructure requirements, and ongoing community engagement to get there. I think from my perspective, I'm a pretty direct person, and I think that's how I like to run my council in terms of formality and process and procedure. Thank you very much.
Ken also wants to respond to that question.
Thank you. So once again, I would call on community experts, and I'd call on volunteers, because our volunteerism on the key community programs, the committees have fallen off, the infrastructure committee, the finance committee. So I think that's important. We need to draw on our community. And I'd foster an inclusive conversation that we would look towards the individuals that are involved to put their input, and that way reducing our expenditures. I would also invoke an immediate hiring freeze with our front office. I think we've expanded that front office enough. We're up at close to 2 million now. And again, I'll look back to Anmore, 1.2 million. So we're far in excess of what they are. And the comment was from the mayor was start using your volunteers, start going after your experts. So that's how I would approach this issue. Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the next question is from David Waller. Are you present, David? What it shows on the, it looks to me like David was going to ask Tamara a question.
Okay.
Is David not with us tonight?
David Waller?
Oh, just a second. Hang on. Can you hold just a second, please? Okay, I think I've got the answer. David Waller actually wrote in and said that while he couldn't be here this evening, he would like me to put a question to you on his behalf. So he was one of the people that wrote in. His name went in the draw, and his name's been drawn, and I can pose the question. And it is as follows. Recent years have seen very high increases in our community concurrent with significant financial challenges and stresses of a pandemic. Reportedly due to low revenue capture in the past by Lions Bay residents. With inflation at record highs, cost of living rising dramatically, what options will the mayors consider to increase revenue other than the continual double-digit increases in property tax and infrastructure levy? And it's directed to Tamara.
That's a great question, right? The answer isn't just raise tax, raise tax, raise tax. We have an idea, well, let's just go and make them pay more tax. You know, let's just raise it. You know, everybody else is holding the line. We should just raise our tax rate, right? No, it's let's look at from a creative problem-solving standpoint, using our collective brain trust and come up with some answers. Let's put up the problems and let's work together. So what would I do? I would bring back to the table all the committees that have been put on pause, or we would create new ones to look at current new issues such as fire and emergency evacuation. Fire and emergency ESS is great. We've got Mary Brown and Leslie Nolan right here who are superstars in that area who are doing a tremendous job. Let's give them all a hand because honestly, that's a tough job in tough circumstances. We've got fire, you know, we're surrounded on three sides by green space. I live at the very top of the mountain, so I'm very cognizant of fire. Somebody's having a barbecue, we're outside. So we need to think of additional ways to be prepared, to create a plan. What is our evacuation plan? As kids, we do fire drills. We've never, in 22 years, done an evacuation plan. The road that I would use at Timbertop Drive, SoundCloud, to get out, Ron has the key to. And I've asked for the key for 2 years. I still don't have a key. The answer is get some bolt cutters, keep them in your car, and follow the trucks out. That's not a plan. So we need to have some more robust, we have the brain trust, we have the trails group. Put up your hand if you're part of the trail hiker group. Rose Dudley, John Dudley, yes, you guys have built for 20 years an amazing backcountry trail system. That's how we're hiking out of here in case of an emergency. You follow those guys, they know where to go. They know where not to go, right? Ed Langford and the ESS crew who save people on the mountains. We need to be asking people like this to come to the table to help us figure these things out and help us prioritize. Because as a community, we need to start relying on our internal knowledge base that is unique about the terrain that is unique to Lions Bay and stop hiring expensive consultants who come from outside, who are probably very good at their jobs in Burnaby, but you know what? We're Lions Bay, and our topographical situation is just a lot different.
Your time is up, Tamara. Thank you
That's
very
what I
much.
would do.
Just want to check, do either of the other candidates wish to use a wild card on that question, or shall I go to the next question? Seeing none, seeing one. Ken would like to respond.
So I think it comes back again to the fiscal responsibility, and we'll look at other revenue opportunities, but that's something that we're going to consult the community with whether it's transitional housing or entry-level housing. And we've talked about that in the OCP. But I think the important thing is cutting expenses. So as I said previously, we'll put an immediate hiring freeze on. We'll also call the senior staff back to the office. Last couple of years with COVID has been difficult on everyone, but it's time to come back to the office and start to manage our team. So if I'm in office, I'll be there with our senior staff, and we'll be managing that team. You can't do it from afar. And then, of course, we're going to call on those volunteers, and I can't stress that enough. I've already got a lineup of individuals that have put their hand up and said, look, we'll be there to help you out. We want to be called upon. And right now, we just don't have that structure where there's communication between our staff. What we need is some leadership there, and we need someone to start forming our team again. And I've been involved in the past when we've had to make adjustments to the culture, and it's not easy, but it can be done. And then we have to prioritize our capital projects as well. So something like the connector project, is that priority, putting a sidewalk down Lions Bay Avenue? I don't think so. I think that money can be spent somewhere else. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ron has indicated that he also wants to use a wild card on that question.
Two things that have been addressed by my colleagues. I didn't quite finish on the revenue side for the infrastructure and financing. Just to quickly cap up, we have a property on Ocean View Road. It's not a particularly pretty property and could be developed into lots or lots and sold after community engagement. The community plan is going to bring the villagers together in determining how density can and what it should look like, not only for housing needs, but for revenue needs. When your asset management plan is calling for $650,000 to be put away annually, and you're putting away $150,000, you don't need to talk about doing stuff. You actually have to do it. Move the big rocks, not the small one. That's what I would propose to do. I'm hopeful that the community plan will see its way into having us continue with our negotiations with the province on the Brunswick Crown land. The current public works yard could move to that Crown land, allocating the existing site to be developed within the vision of the residents in the official community plan. The question also alluded to infrastructure tax. That was something that I put forward to my council. A 10% fee, that was pretty gutsy. What I can tell you is that with that in place, it's the only reason we get grants now. If that wasn't in our grant application, we wouldn't be getting any grants. I'd like to talk about our employees that my colleague talked about and about expenses. I'd like to run the full-time employees for you for the last 3 years. In 2020, 13.7 people we had. In 2021, 14.3 people. Budgeted for this year, 14.15 people. I can tell you that we've been pushed down from the government to provide for an emergency program coordinator, and the cost differential in some of this is our bylaw officers. In different segments, we have been paid for the province by this. So I think to institute a hiring freeze is basically to confirm what's already in place. So I appreciate that, Candidate Berry.
Thank you. So I just want to say to Tamara, the intention here is that all candidates have the opportunity to speak to one question once. So, yeah, no, because you've already had you were the opening speaker. And the interest here is to try and hear from as many people as possible. So we've drawn the next name out, and the next person that has indicated they wish to put a question is Mr. Stone.
Thank you, sir.
Just indicate which candidate you're directing the question to start.
The mayor's.
Which of the candidates? They all have an opportunity to speak, but you can direct your question to the first one.
Okay, Mr. McLaughlin. Back in 1985, as I recall, when we first moved to this village, we had one person on staff. I forget her name. You remember her name? Bernice Perlin. And I could be wrong, but I think she worked as a volunteer. She had a salary? Well, she may have had a salary, but now we have 14. And as a member of this community, I think it's time for us to not just freeze, but to reduce. And so my question is, what are your plans to reduce the staff that we're paying? I don't think we can afford paying a village manager over $100,000 a year. I mean, this is Lions Bay. We only have a small tax base, so that's my question. What plans do you have to reduce or cut staff?
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you very much, Mr. Stone. It wouldn't be my intention to reduce staff. I think we are at a point where our Public Works crew, in their core services agreement, they're getting by with the team that they have. The core services review says they could use 2 more people. They're not. Our staff has substantially not increased, as I pointed out, since 2020, and actually in 2019 it was 0.6 of a person more. I think when you calculate the revenue that we're making off our bylaw officers, the administration that's required for it, the skill to obtain the grants that we do, over $1.8 million, of which we're paying about $300,000. I think we want the best-in-class people there, and I think that's what the village has been getting. Thank you very much.
Tamara has indicated that she wishes you to use a wild card to respond to the same question.
I don't know, 14 people. How many people does it take to change a light bulb? We can't afford it. We haven't grown. And most of us know that having more children doesn't save you money. It costs you money, right? We know this. We're 540 homes. We haven't really grown. We've added a few, but we haven't really grown. Our needs haven't astronomically soared. Yes, our infrastructure does need to be replaced, but we need to work smarter. We need to collapse jobs. We need to stop turning on the taps as we're walking through the house and leaving the lights on. We need to conserve, and we need to be more fiscally responsible. We need to plan, come to council with a budget, and we need to live within our means. And if somebody does a parking lot agreement and spends money, makes an agreement to spend money, doesn't bring it back to council for ratification, it's denied. It's not planned for. Too bad. You can't have people cutting checks for things that weren't planned for in the budget. That's everyone. You can't run your household like that. It is not sensible. It is not best practice, and it is not sustainable. Planning to sustain where you are by selling your assets doesn't make sense. Selling our municipal lands, they're gone. And we're only selling them to balance the budget. It's not like we're building them to build something new, a new community asset that we actually need. We're building redundancies. We're building things that we don't need, that we only have to maintain, so we have to hire more staff. I feel like I'm in Wizard of Oz. Please, vote sensibly. Half these projects are unnecessary, unwanted albatrosses that we then just have to have more lights on, more taps on. We're a frugal, fiscally prudent, savvy community.
Tamara, can you wrap up?
We're
please?
better than this. Let's
Thank you.
save some money and reduce headcount.
And Ken wants to respond to the same question.
Tamara, you've made some good points there. I don't think we'd have to be cutting staff. What I would be doing is changing the culture of the staff. I'd start to have them working with our experts within the community. And in my experience, sometimes that culture change doesn't always go as planned. and we may have some natural reduction. But I'd hope that we do have everyone step forward and work as a team, and that would be my priority, is to have them work as a team and reduce our operating expenditures by calling on the experts within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. So just before I call on the next speaker, I just want to make you aware that Ken and Ron, you've both used up all three of your wild cards. So Tamara, you have one left. I have one wild card. You have one wild card left. So the next name we've drawn out of the hat is John Westcott. Please come forward.
Since I already know Tamara's response to this question and based on actions, this is to you, Ken. Accepting experts' advice on issues in which you lack expertise will be important should you win your race. As mayor, you'll be representing the collective interests and well-being of Lions Bay's residents. Being able to act collaboratively with experts, and to react logically, not emotionally, all the while being respectful is essential. For example, climate change is such an issue where it will be important to listen to the experts. And using that as an example, there are a few scientists with anti-climate change viewpoints, but an overwhelming majority of experts attest to the danger it presents. Who knows what may happen during your tenure, but your ability to accept experts' opinions and not rely on your gut will likely be needed. The COVID pandemic is strikingly similar to climate change. While there were a few people with scientific backgrounds making contrary statements, the overwhelming consensus among experts was the path BC and our Lions Bay government followed.
John, do you have a question?
Yes. In order to gauge your ability to accept experts' advice, what was your stance on BC's COVID policy, including your compliance with the vaccination policy? Thank you.
Good question. Just so everyone knows, I'm not anti-vax. I am vaccinated, but I believe that it's everyone's privacy and everyone's right to keep that to themselves. And what I would also say and add is that our federal government is looking at dropping the mandates and moving forward. I suggest and I believe that we need to move forward as a village. We need to pull our community together. The one disappointment over the last couple of years, there's been lots of trials and errors and positives and negatives. My disappointment was the federal government dividing our communities and our country and our families. If I'm mayor, I will bring our community together. I'll welcome everyone to the table. This is a great community. We all love Lions Bay. We all want the same thing. And again, it's community. It's about the people. Many of us came here for the views initially, but it's about we quickly learned that it was the people that mattered. And my family and I have welcomed our village into our home, and we've loved every moment of it. And so I'm happy that COVID is starting to be put behind us, and I would suggest that we all come together, John, and we welcome each other. We move forward. So thank you.
Tamara? Tamara is using her last wild card to respond to the question, and just put everybody on notice that I think that we will now call after Tamara's responded. It's 8:15. We said we would take a break at 8:15, and we'll move on to the councillors segment. If there's time at the end and somebody still wants to put a further question to the mayors, we'll circle back to that. But Tamara, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah. So, John, thank you for this really important question. I am pro-science. I believe in vaccination. It works to shield our most vulnerable. And I also know that masking and washing hands works to reduce distancing. I am personally fully vaccinated. I don't mind saying that, having received my family and my extended family is also fully vaccinated. However, I'm just going to broaden the scope because, and John, I know that you know afternoon. So I'm reading from this. We had a great conversation, so join us there. But however, I'll broaden this. Health order, and how did I navigate it when COVID landed? Savings, which is the equivalent of adding 80 new property tax paying homes here. And also if we build seniors housing here, we can't guarantee that seniors are going to live there. It's just housing. So let's just call it housing because that's what it will be. We currently, under our current OCP, we can have an in-suite home. Our homes can be subdivided to have an in-suite home, and we can live that way. And aging in place also means remodeling. You need a grab bar in the tub, and you need wider stairs to manage a wheelchair. Older people know this. My parents have remodeled their home to be able to age in place. So age in place, you don't actually physically have to move. And oftentimes if you have to move, it's because you need other care type things like access to medical care, flat walking spaces, this sort of thing. So I'm just saying that we already have mixed-use housing. If people want to split their home up and have an upstairs, downstairs suite to accommodate a live-in assistant caregiver or have somebody else living there, we already currently have that. Is the desire there? It's up to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ken, if you'd like to offer us your closing comments, please. 1 minute.
All right, I think there's been tremendous conversation tonight, and we've all appreciated all the input and questions from everyone. I'd just like to say that I think it's time for a reset in Lions Bay. It's time to put residents first, and I think we need to keep our dreams alive. Our community is special, and to quote Mike Hurst, our community takes our breath away. I'd like to tell you a little story about a dream that I had, I'll just give you a brief background on one of the stories where I learned to dream big and not put any limits on myself. So when I was fortunate enough to play with the Edmonton Oilers and Wayne Gretzky, I happened to be in the dressing room between the second period, and he was going for one of the records that will probably never be broke again. He was going for 50 goals in 39 games. He had 3 goals going into the third period, and between the second and third period, he turned to me and he said, "Wouldn't it be great if I got 5 tonight?" And I just went, "Yeah, go for it." But he just dreamed big, and I think that we can dream big as well. I don't think we have to settle, for average. I think that as a community, we get together and we consult each other, and we arrive whether we're going to do transitional housing or entry-level housing, but we can do that as a community, not as special interest groups. So,
Just wrap up, Ken. Is that
all right. We can't do this alone. It's going to take the community. I'd like to be there to lead it. I believe I've got the team qualities, but I'm going to need your vote when it comes to the 5th and the 15th. So if you believe in our community and you believe that I can be your leader, please vote for Ken Berry. Thank you.
Thank you again. Ron? And now we'll hear from Ron.
Hello again. Firstly, I'd like to thank Ken Berry and Tamara Ledger for running for office. It requires tremendous personal strength, passion, effort, and a desire to serve our community. Everyone should appreciate their efforts. Thank you both. I do. My council and I have not been flashy. We just got the job done in delivering essential infrastructure, generating additional revenue, and ensuring we represent your views within Lions Bay and outside the community. Council's many tangible accomplishments this term were achieved against a backdrop of over 2.5 years against the pandemic, when we were also focused on keeping you safe. Infrastructure, services, and planning often go unnoticed, but they are what allows us to continue to enjoy living in wonderful Lions Bay. I'd be proud to serve our community as your mayor for a second term. There's still so much work to do. Thank you.
Thank you to all 3 of the mayoral candidates, and this now brings us to the point of the program where we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll hear from the council candidates, starting with Tanya. Okay. Could I ask the candidates to start making their way back to the table, please? Candidates? We're going to be starting in a couple of minutes.
But why don't we do
Lady-
something else and, thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I get you to take your place? We're ready to get started.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, everybody take their place. If anybody wants to carry on the conversation, could you do it outside, please? We're ready to start. Okay. Ron, would the mayoral candidates please, if they want to continue the discussions, could they do it outside? Thank you. Trying 10:30. Me too. Okay, well, let's get started. Again, the order of the speakers was determined randomly, and as the luck of the draw would have it, Tanya, you're first. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Our candidate is starting. Can you please take your chairs? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Am I on the clock yet? Not yet. Tell me when.
All right, Tanya, it's over to you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Tanya Cosgrave. Some of you may know me as Tanya Ginger. I'm the daughter of Flo and Harold Ginger. Mom, Dad, can you put your hands up? My mom and dad were some of the originals in this village. They, I think, were one of the first on the upper side of the village, and I'm so grateful for you, both of you, for bringing me into this village and raising me here. On my little brochure that some of you may have picked up, this village runs in my DNA, and it literally runs in my DNA. I was born and raised here, and I love every minute of it. At age 18, I decided that I didn't have quite the same feeling of Lions Bay as I do today, and I wanted to get out of here as fast as I could. And I hit the road and decided to start a career in business. I had a couple of options. I could go through music, down the music path, or I could go into the business world. And I chose to go to Cap College and go into the business world and started a company called Tag Sales that I ran for 20 years on my own. It was a wholesale distribution clothing company. I had Canada as my territory and traveled all over for 20 years. Fast forward, I had an opportunity to meet my husband, Roger. Where's Roger? My great husband, Roger, and we decided to start a family. My ideal situation would have been to keep running that company as it was, but once I had that baby, it wasn't going to happen. Roger and I decided to morph that Tag Sales into a new company and create Peak Golf, which he runs today for us. And I decided to change my career to be a little bit more appropriate for my children, and I became a music teacher for young kids. I work in Vancouver, and I also have one class that I teach out here in Lions Bay, and the reason for that was as a young mother, I had to drag my kids onto that highway to go to any kind of classes, and I figured that we needed something in our backyard. And you're probably wondering why I'm here, why am I standing up now? I used to be asked to step up for council, and I used to say that I love my village too much. I don't want to go on council. I might not love my village anymore. But I think because of this right here is why I'm stepping up. I think we do need to have a little bit of refreshment and some change in this village. The last 2 years around the world feels like it's gone crazy. The whole world's gone crazy. And this is great because this gives me a bit of hope that people are coming back around, gathering, and that we can maybe move forward and get some things done. As I started to do my canvassing around the village, wow, did a whole bunch of issues come up. So there's a huge issue with communication between staff and between council and community members. I'd love to try to address that if I got on council. I'd also like to be a part of helping us fiscally go forward in a sustainable way. I do believe that we need some sustainable growth. I believe in seniors housing. My parents are not here anymore because we couldn't get seniors housing for them. And we lost fantastic, historic memories of Lions Bay with them not being here. I don't want to see that happen to anybody else. So if you have a chance to vote for me and you would like me to sit on council, I promise you that I will roll up my sleeves. I will work very hard for you. I have volunteered in this community since I got here, actually before I got here. Excuse me, my mouth's getting a bit dry. Before I got here, I sit on the Lions Bay Scholarship Committee. I'm the vice chair with Michael Broughton as the chair. Thank you very much, Norm. I sit on events committee. I have for 11 years. I ran the play school here while my kids were at the play school. So I do have some experience with dealing with lots of different personalities and being able to sit at a boardroom table. And my own business experience hopefully gives me a chance to pass that on as well. Thank you very much. I'm Tanya for council.
Thank you, Tanya. Jamie Cunliffe is next at the podium.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. Talk about public engagement. If there's one thing that COVID highlighted was a significant increase in attendance to council meetings and here tonight. So it's been my pleasure to serve as an acclaimed councillor for the last 4 years. And I can tell you what I've learned over the last 4 years, and that is patience. Participating in government requires a lot of patience. As a councillor, you must be willing to play the long game. You must be willing to take time, resilience, and persistence. If elected, I will commit to the next term, and I appreciate the precarious situation that our village could be left in if there was a seat or two that were left not filled. That would require a by-election. It would cost money for the village. It would leave us in a situation where we would not be able to get things done. So my focus is on community, and what does that mean to me? Sustainability and the viability of Lions Bay. So we need to be creative when seeking new sources of revenue. We have very limited opportunities, and we need to be open and welcome to ideas that are presented to us. We need to support volunteerism and take advantage of the human capital that does reside in the village. And that result could be less money spent on consultants, which we've had a couple of our mayoral candidates say tonight. I would also like to support respectful communication when it comes to public engagement, consultation, respect between conversations with staff, residents, and other council members. I would continue with CAC initiatives, so the Climate Action Committee, co-chaired by Councilor Barmeyer and I. We are working to establish a greenhouse gas baseline that was highlighted in the 2008 OCP, which has not been reviewed, and we still do not have a start point. My passion is for a mini transfer station. So everybody who loves recycling, like I do, we can take it to a facility within the village, which will take people out of cars and not driving to the facilities that are in North Vancouver. I also have a passion about feasible, reasonable public transportation in the Sea to Sky corridor. So we've been left out of that conversation to date. I've spoken with a couple councillors between Whistler and Pemberton. They are on board to make us part of that conversation. We are not being served by TransLink adequately, and it is unreasonable to expect that people are going to start using transportation, public transportation, as their only means of commuting. So I will also commit to always being open to information and willingness to take all perspectives into consideration. I believe in compromise, my mind is open, and it can be changed. So I appreciate, again, you all coming here. My name is Jamie Cunliffe, so if you have me, I would be more than happy to serve another term.
Thank you, Jamie. We're now going to hear from Fred Bain.
Whoops. Well, that was a long walk. I would like to share what I think is needed to improve the quality of municipal life in our village. I thought I was going to take a different tact than some that have gone before me, but if I didn't know better, I'd say people were reading my notes. First of all, my thoughts on municipal leadership. To start with, I see municipal leadership as service. I believe council exists to serve the residents and provide good governance to our village. This is demonstrated by meeting the needs of the residents collectively. Council does this by directing staff by feedback from the residents. Communication is the key to this. It must be bilateral between council and staff, staff and residents, residents and council. Communication must reflect freedom of speech, being respectful, truthful, honest, and attentive. Most people just need to be heard. Next, if I can do a switch, my thoughts are on infrastructure. First line on this is the Infrastructure Committee, the IC, needs to be restored with greater scope and function. I sat for as the chair of the Infrastructure Committee for a number of years, and it's just dissolved, and it's really a shame. Qualified resident volunteers should be encouraged to be part of this again. A new IC would have greater input in bidding, evaluation, scope, and function in advising council. We need to cut back on reliance on consultants, use the IC members as much as possible as needed. Also, see how common sense would guide us. Council must, whoops, the mic's in the way. Council must attend to the infrastructure that supports our community while supervising the finances to ensure we have a very viable community. As we add to or repair to our infrastructure, we need to reconsider how we manage these projects. First one, no more starting projects before the bottom line is known. No more designing as we go, as it opens us up to projects creeping, causing the original concept to be exceeded. The winning bids on these contracts should always be the best fit for Lions Bay and verified by the IC and Council. Projects should be planned well enough in the beginning before putting them out for bids. We need to stop chasing grant funding for things we do not have as top priorities. We should also look for barn raising opportunities for meeting some of our project needs. And I can explain that later if somebody doesn't know what we mean by that. This would open up more opportunities for volunteers to engage in the village activities, which would make for excellent community morale and cost savings. The other thing I wanted to mention was the emergency services. This is the good news side of it. We have good people already in place, and we need to continue to support them. I'm really happy that our ESS team has got co-chairs now, that they're a great find for us. We've got an emergency program coordinator, excellent character, good quality and skills. So for volunteers, I've seen a renewed enthusiasm in the village participation. They need encouragement and support, and to know they are always valued. How well will this work? That'll depend on your decisions in the voting booth. Now, some more good news, if I can just run over quickly. Do I have time? Okay, thanks. What was accomplished this past term? Not everything's doom and gloom. We were able to accomplish some. We have a qualified, competent emergency planning coordinator. I don't know if I should mention their names. They're not here. Well, two of them are here. We've got progress in setting up the Emergency Operations Centers, or the EOC. The Emergency Planning Committee has been reactivated. We have filled our vacancy for leadership with 2 co-chairs in ESS. I hope Mary Brown and Leslie Nolan don't mind me mentioning them.
Fred, start to wrap up, if you would, please.
Okay. I'll talk quicker. Improvements in our water system were done. Paving sections of the road that can't wait for funding, or the parts in the ground and surfaces that were failing, got the first attention. Memorial Committee was established and functioning well. Mary Comer Miles Indigenous Plant Garden took on a new life. And one of the other big things is we moved Lions Bay from urban designation to a rural designation. And what came out of that was better engagement of residents with the Have Your Say survey. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
As I mentioned a little earlier, Nicole Lund was unable to be with us this evening, but she's asked Karen Jeffrey if she would offer her opening comments on her behalf. So Karen, thank you.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of Nicole, she's asked me to read this. I just want to say that in case I forget at the end, she does have cards, and her platform is at the back that you can pick up on the way out. It looks like it's Heather Hood, but it's really Nikki Lund. Okay. Hello, villagers, friends, neighbors. My name is Nicole Lund. Not really. Okay. Okay, I'm done. Okay. Many of you know me as Nikki. I moved to beautiful Brunswick Beach with my husband and 2 sons a year and a half ago, and after building our new home, moving to Lions Bay was a dream come true for us. My background is in interior design. As well, I own and operate a successful electrical contracting company with my husband. While he oversees the technical side, I design the lighting plans as well as oversee the administration of the company. My interest is building West Coast modern, functional, eco-friendly homes on budget and on time. My focus is sourcing local materials and labor in service of top quality at the best price and differentiating the must-haves from the nice-to-haves. It is this experience and expertise that I will bring to the table when it comes to projects like the beach park, infrastructure, and community planning. I am a problem solver by nature, as well as being highly detailed-oriented. I believe in collaboration, community input, and listening to all voices, dissenting as well, to come to a common way forward. Early in my career, I worked for several years as a project manager for a commercial maintenance company with over 800 unionized employees. So I understand what it takes to operate a large business and to roll up my sleeves and get the dirty work done. I'm an advocate for accessibility, not only from a design perspective, but from a personal place as well. Our community schools, our facilities, our beaches must accommodate all ages, physical limitations, and barriers. While community values of fairness and transparency are what fed my desire to run for council, understanding infrastructure, fiscal responsibility, and meeting budget is paramount. Since submitting my candidacy for councillor, and as a new resident and new to politics as well, I have spent the last couple of weeks and put in a significant amount of time reading and studying our official community plan, our infrastructure master plan, and looking at all of the ways that make government work and not work. There is much to learn, and I am capable to meet the challenge. I believe informed decision-making and planning are key. As councillor, I will uphold my obligation to exercise discretion in a reasonable and impartial manner. Most importantly, I will listen to those I would be honored to represent, and that's you, the residents. Please vote for Nikki Lund. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate that we'll be hearing from is Marcus Reuter.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Marcus Reuter, and I would be honored to serve as your councillor. Some of you may know me from my many appearances at council and at the Board of Metro Vancouver on the issue of removing our village from the urban containment boundary. I first represented residents' quest to be recognized as a rural community by delivering a petition signed by over 200 of us in June of last year to our council. This led to the official have your say from our council, and then the change finally to a rural designation in July of this year. I think that this has been a very important event for our village. To have played an active role in this grassroots active democracy, to have connected with so many of you along the way, to see the passion we all have for this place has been an invigorating experience. I've lived here for 30 years, always appreciative of the special privilege of our independence and being surrounded by nature. I think that's worth standing up for anytime. What also became apparent to me during this process, however, is that we have a crisis of values in our local government. This thing just should not have been so difficult, so fraught with palace intrigue and hidden agendas right at the head of council and senior staff. Frankly, if it hadn't been for the work of councillors, our voices wouldn't have just been crushed into dust. They wouldn't have been heard in the first place. So I believe that we are at a critical juncture at this moment. This one hard-fought-for victory could be snatched away quite easily. Continuing to defend our community from the relentless push for densification and urbanization is not only the right thing to do, it's the smart move economically. Many of our newer neighbors have put heavy capital on the table, far more than long-term residents like me, and have invested in this place because they loved it when they saw it. If they'd wanted urban density and all the conveniences of urban life that we do not have, they would have gone elsewhere, but they didn't. They came here because they loved it just as we do. So I believe we have an ethical obligation to all residents to preserve the natural integrity of this place and a fiduciary obligation to protect their investment of capital. Our official community plan, our constitution, if you will, maps out our community's vision, and protecting the natural character of our village must be paramount to anyone up here, especially after the Have Your Say so clearly affirmed residents' desire to retain this character and lifestyle. It's also a smart move, as better grant funding opportunities can open up for us as a rural community, a major contributor to our bottom line. Now, while attending council meetings, other issues have become very clear to me, and I've spent time familiarizing myself with the many challenges one faces at council. Our spending must be reined in. That's obvious. Having owned my own business, I'm naturally fiscally prudent, and I don't like what I'm seeing here at all. But what I believe, above all, is that council serves for and at the pleasure of residents. What that means to me is that you've got to be fair and transparent, accountable, free of personal agenda, and leave your ego at the door. I believe it's serious work and hard work. And if you'll have me, I'm up for it. Thank you very much.
you. Our next candidate is Michael Broughton.
Pardon me. Hello, Lions Bay. I'm Michael Broughton. This past week, I knocked on each door in Lions Bay, almost every door. I learned so much about the community, and from many, I learned quite a lot about their concerns. One constant was that you love Lions Bay. What did I hear? I heard that the highway noise is intolerable for a significant portion of our community. My experience on the Highway Advisory Group and with 99 Watch has been invaluable when we look at addressing this concern, and I will be delighted to be involved in a solution when on council. Active community input and meaningful consultation is a huge value of our community. In all my travels, I found one person who could describe to me what they thought the Lions Bay Connector was, yet funds have been allocated to it and surveying has begun. Questions have been repeatedly raised with who runs the village, and these were from all corners of the village, totally unrelated. Is it the council or is it the CAO? Housing options are a huge concern to people in our village, whether for young families, to age in place, or to respect economies. This will involve our land use planning and our official community plan in the very near future. Sustainability is incredibly important to ensure that we have the infrastructure we want and need and that we can afford it, and this with serious consultation. Fear for safety from wildfires and in the summer and from trees falling in winter storms was very prevalent in our village. Some of the people I spoke to knew the couple who were killed in Horseshoe Bay on January 2nd. Loss of culture, loss of volunteerism, and loss of community was a common theme. Parking for hikers was also a serious concern. When I see a need, I respond with action. I am qualified, I'm committed, and I'm concerned. I have the skills and background to create great outcomes for Lions Bay. My experience, which is listed on the card, which is available to you there, indicates vision to action. I've been a lifelong volunteer. I'm currently the chair of the board of the Lions Bay Community Scholarship Foundation, a foundation which I was a founding member of. Since 2004, 66 Lions Bay students have received scholarships from our foundation. I'm very proud of that. I have a doctorate in educational leadership. I'm a leader. On 2 terms in council, when a number of years ago, during the development of Kelvin Grove, I created positive outcome with underground wiring, advocating for underground wiring, securing the beach park, and ensuring that there was secondary treatment when only primary was the standard at that time. Sorry about that. There we are, sorry about that. My platform consists of 8 pieces. I will highlight 3, and then
Thank you, Michael. We're running out of time.
and I will support them with the other 5. Very briefly, fiscal prudence, zero-based budgeting, active community input and honest consultation, informed, researched, council decision-making. If elected, I will do everything in my power to move Lions Bay forward, responsibly, positively, heaven on earth. Please vote Michael Broughton on October the 15th or in the advance poll October the 5th. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we have Nora Barmier. That's Michael.
Good evening, neighbors. Just put my glasses on so I can read. My name is Norm Barmer, and I'm running for re-election. I wanted to talk about how I got here tonight. I'd like to give you a brief history of how I ended up in this seat and what I can offer to the community and what I've managed to achieve over my last term. I first came to Lions Bay in 2008 as an engineer. My role was client rep and designer for the drinking water upgrades at Magnesia Creek and Harvey Creek. We basically added a second layer of protection in the form of UV treatment and upgraded pressure reducing chambers up at those sites. This gave me an opportunity to become familiar with most of Lion Bay's drinking water and wastewater assets. I've been to the intakes, I've been inside the PRV chambers, I had a hand in designing the treatment facilities, and I've even been inside the Kelvin Grove wastewater treatment plant. During this time, I got to know staff and council, and I ultimately fell in love with Lions Bay. I told myself that I was going to live here one day. In 2016, I bought a house up on Ocean View. I fixed it up, and I can now confidently say Lions Bay is my home. As chance may have it, Lions Bay was holding a by-election in 2017, and I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I ran on a very lean platform of 1, infrastructure management, 2, revenue generation, and 3, sustainability. Now it's 2022, and I've learned a lot in the last 5 years about local governance, including complex legal, legislative, and financial framework. All designed to ensure checks and balances, transparency, fairness, and due process. Looking back, I actually feel really proud of what we've accomplished. Why am I here again? and what do I bring to the table? I wanted to talk about skill transfer and what I do for a living and how I can bring experience to council. In my full-time job, I develop infrastructure across Canada, including several lower mainland BC municipalities. So how is this relevant to Lions Bay and my seat at the council table? So I want to go through 5 skills. I regularly apply for development and building permits, which gives me an opportunity with planning and development staff, planning advisory committees, environmental groups, neighborhood associations, and in some cases, presentations to council. I work with building department staff, which exposes me to local building bylaws, easement issues, right-of-ways, encroachment agreements. I also regularly deal with provincial regulators and fire departments. So I can bring this perspective when similar issues come to council. I design classic infrastructure, so covering the full scope of discipline coordination from geotech, civil structural, through to architectural, mechanical, and electrical. So this affords me the knowledge base to ask the right questions when we tackle infrastructure. I'm responsible for project delivery, which can range from self-perform, where we use internal resources, in the case of Lions Bay volunteers, to full turnkey project delivery, where we farm out the whole project. This affords me the experience to weigh in on project delivery strategies that we take on here. Fourthly, I work in an industry segment that is still heavily supported by provincial and federal government, so we regularly apply and compete for grants. And this gives me an awareness of how much effort goes into these applications and the relationship we have with grant agencies who are essentially stakeholders in our projects. And lastly, my company owns, maintains, and operates all of our infrastructure. So I'm familiar with what we're asking our operators to do. And what that means in terms of my role on council is that I have insight into and understand exactly what we're asking our public works staff to do. I'm aware of workplace safety. When Public Works brings an issue to the table, I can ask the right questions. In 2017, I ran on the following, I delivered on my promises.
Can you wrap up your
Infrastructure
comments,
management, yeah, I'm gonna wrap up right now. Infrastructure management, I pushed hard for the asset management investment plan funding, and now we have a fund dedicated to infrastructure management account, so we're in a much stronger position to tackle projects and repairs. Revenue generation, I pushed hard for street parking meters, and we've been able to generate tenfold revenue over 2017 from $10,000 to over $100,000. This puts us in a position to create opportunities, improvements for the village. And sustainability. I co-chaired the Climate Action Committee, with a group of dedicated residents. We were able to move the needle on GHG reduction through drafting green procurement policy, fleet electrification policy, and a formal declaration of a climate emergency, just to name a few. We still have a lot to do, and I'm keen to keep moving these issues in the right direction. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Norm. And now we have Neville Abbott.
Evening all, and thanks for a wonderful turnout. My name is Neville Abbott. I'm a current councillor, and I'm running for council again. With a surname like that, you'd probably appreciate I'm not used to speaking last out of a group of 8. In my day job, I'm a project manager for an international engineering firm. What I do involves a lot of budgets, staffing, and making sure things stay on schedule. This council has some big issues to deal with. They're all interlinked, and they cannot be dealt with in isolation. Firstly, we must address our infrastructure deficit. The solution is multifaceted. There is no magic bullet. In doing this, we must first look at both sides of the financial equation, starting with find ways to reduce expenditure before we go to increasing taxes. This must include a review of our staffing plan. Is it right-sized, and is the work effort being spent in the right places? This idea to some is a holy cow that we cannot question. That does residents a disservice. We must uphold our OCP and confirm its alignment with our rural designation. We need to make volunteerism the core of the community again. This is the heart and soul of who we are. As well, it gives us free expertise and services. I will continue to work on revitalizing volunteer groups and remove obstacles to their success. Sorry. We also need to prioritize the formulation of a meaningful climate action plan and bring the environment back into our planning. I want to tell you a real quick story that will explain my approach to being on council. In 2019, staff finally appointed an emergency planning coordinator. One of the priorities set by council was a long overdue evacuation plan. The following year, another fire season was looming, and I asked staff where was the evacuation plan. I was told I didn't understand what it takes. I spoke to Fred Bain, who was on the committee with me, and he agreed we needed to take action. I called the fire chief, Ed Langford from the search and rescue, and roped in a resident with writing skills. The 5 of us came up with the foundation of a plan and presented to council a week or 2 later. It was in your mailboxes at about a month after that. I tell you this story because I believe it demonstrates my approach to being a councillor. I will challenge conventional thinking to find better solutions, consider matters with an open mind, maintain my 100% attendance record at meetings and committees, do the homework and come prepared. I will consult residents to make sure their decisions are aligned with our vision and values. I will step outside the box and roll up my sleeves if that's what it takes to make it happen. One thing the new council will find out fast is no matter what they promise here tonight, it takes collaboration to make anything happen in council. It takes at least 3 votes at the council table to do anything. Everyone up here tonight will tell you they believe in public engagement, but how many truly walk that talk? Early in this council term, I became aware of Metro's wood-burning regulations. I put together a Have You Say to find out what residents thought. Over 300 people responded, by far the highest rate in any such survey in Lions Bay. I believe that helped set the tone for my term. When the bigger question on how we see ourselves in the urban versus rural, the debate around the urban containment boundary, I was puzzled by some on council who I believed were not expressing the opinion of most residents. A little later, Marcus Reuter, thank you Marcus, presented his petition to the Urban Council. I once again pushed for a Have Your Say and got the support from my fellow councillors. This time 535 people responded, 91% confirming my thoughts were correct. and this subsequently resulted in a change in our designation at Metro in July. I said from the outset of my term I wanted less secrecy and use a clause in the community charter to question when items have been discussed in camera. This is now standard procedure at our council meetings. I brought the annual planning session into the open so that residents could contribute. Prior to that, it was a closed meeting.
Sorry, Neville, can I get you to wrap up your comments, please? You're all the time.
I'm right there, sorry. If I get back to council, I'm ready to keep on working. On the infrastructure, emergency program committee and Curly Stewart committees, the Bear Smart, Block Watch and bird friendly initiatives. I also hope to play a bigger role in the climate action when the opportunity arises. Thank you all.
So we're now going to give each of the candidates an opportunity to respond to the same two questions that were posed to the mayoral candidates earlier. And we're going to start with Marcus. And Marcus, I'll repeat the question once you get up there. Just for everybody's benefit, I'll just recite the same question that was posed to the mayoral candidates, pardon me. And it is this. In light of the recent housing needs assessment study that the village undertook, what do you see as the critical housing needs in Lions Bay, if any? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, first to the housing needs assessment study. I think what it essentially determined is that we are small and our population is small and that we're not expected to grow and that there's essentially not much that we have to do. I think I personally was a little underwhelmed by the study. It contained some outdated information. And I also questioned what the report cost. I understand it didn't cost us anything, but it was mandated that we do this report, and it was funded from elsewhere. But it still cost us money as taxpayers. And as to costs, you know, it seems to me that we've got to stop behaving like a big municipality. We've got to run a tight and nimble ship. We've got to stop with the endless, costly outside consultants' reports and feasibility studies. We've got an abundance of expertise of all kinds of areas here in the village and people who are willing to step up and contribute. And I would ask that, I would hope that we can re-engage them and make use of that expertise and engage people and get them involved. It's, as the Have Your Say showed, people want to be engaged and take part. And I think that would go a long way to reducing some of our spending as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. We're now going to hear from Neville.
Yeah, Marcus is correct. The housing needs report, it wasn't really an assessment, it was a report, was something that was mandated to us by the provincial government. And I don't think it was something that was that much of a priority for our community. It was more tailored at bigger communities. That being said, it concluded there was very little we could do given our current boundaries, and while identifying that we had little diversity in our housing stock. We have, since our previous OCP, we have taken steps to create diversity, things like the secondary suites, and now we've added in things like subdivisions of smaller lots and cottages. These gentle densification initiatives need to be continued. And that is the easy part we can do to try to get stuff done. But when we do this, we do need to consider it in a case-by-case basis. Not all parts of the community have the same ability to do this, and not all lots, just because of their size, are appropriate for creating additional housing. But above all, we need to do this as part of the public consultation. Our current bylaw says that that subdivisions and subdivisions, small cottages, the proposed bylaw, because it's not enacted yet, can be decided by the CAO. I don't think that is correct. I think residents should be involved, and I think immediate neighbours should be consulted at the least. I'm not in favour of multi-family residential developments in single-family neighbourhoods. We came here, many of us, and bought into these places because we like the way they are, and we have a reasonable expectation to be able to maintain the community, the culture of our community. Duplex is another one that's been mentioned, and I just need people to understand. If you think around the village of some of the really large homes that have been built recently, those homes are built to a certain amount of footprint of the plot of the lot. If you allow duplexes, that will almost double. You're not looking at one of those big homes with 2 front doors. You'll be looking at twice the size of one of those big homes with 2 front doors, and that's what you'll be living next door to. We cannot just We cannot just put these rules in place and let them go on without any public participation or local community involvement. Thank you.
Okay. Michael Broughton is next.
A concern that came up repeatedly when I was going door to door was the concept of aging in place, housing for young families, and dealing with the people's economies. In the 2016 census, 60 houses in our village have 1 person living in them. And what that means to me is that eventually those people will either need to move, and there needs to be options to densify individual housing, whether we look at suites, carriage houses, and so on. We have neighbors very close to us who are aging in place with care, and that is and if their caregivers were able to stay on site, that would be a tremendous advantage. So what I'd be looking to do is bring the community together as part of the OCP plan and review, and look for the most creative approaches that the people of Lions Bay are comfortable with, and that may be regional, it may be different in the different regions. One of the concerns is, of course, water, whether there's enough water. And I think as we add property to Lions Bay, we should get creative around when we are short of water. And these are very specific periods. And if we get creative with on-site storage of water, so that during the periods when we're in our drier periods, that we can draw on that for watering and keeping our areas safe and moist. I think that is critical. As we're adding properties to the village, we should be recommending the inclusion of water collecting facilities. There are many countries in the world to learn from in terms of these kinds of technologies. And I think that with the change in climate, that we need to look at every possible way of addressing climate change. And we have the expertise in the community, and we certainly can draw on worldwide expertise to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Fred? Fred is next.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, with respect to housing needs and the report came down from a requirement by Metro. I think you sort of need to look back at the history of Metro. Metro originally was a purveyor of water and a purveyor of sewer services. And their model is based on flexing their infrastructure, scaling their infrastructure for more subscribers. It doesn't really work for Lions Bay. So I found that the report itself was a little bit of a miss. But in terms of our specific housing needs, you know, it's not a far reach to understand that people want to age in place. That's an obvious one. But the second piece I think that we need to talk about is affordability, and Tamara touched on that. Affordable housing options are at a real scarce. They're just not, especially in a predominantly single family neighborhood. And we have that. We have that opportunity. Our current building bylaws allow for secondary suites, and they allow for cottages. And for every, that's sort of the phase one. That's the current flex that we have to sort of allow for additional housing options. But the reality is, anything beyond that is opening up the OCP. It's really the only way we can tackle that, with understanding what the current community wants to see and what level of densification the current community is happy with. And for those of us that may not know what an OCP is, it's an official community plan. It's basically our steering document that we all feed into. We feed our ideas into this steering document, and it sets the tone for the community going forward. And it needs to be revisited. Ours is really outdated, and it's long overdue for a revisit. And during that period, we can talk about housing options. We can talk about what densification might look like. But having said all that, I think any proposal that comes to the community is one we should consider. And this is where public consultation is really important, and where we understand what it looks like to present a project to a community. So if someone comes in and says, hey, at the Public Works Yard, we could do something really interesting there for aging in place, we should be facilitating that, and we shouldn't turn opportunities down. So that's my perspective on housing needs.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from Jamie.
Thank you. Yeah, referring to the current OCP, we do allow for converting single-family homes to duplexes on a case-by-case basis. I think it's something we should support. If we're allowing secondary suites, we're not adding to the population by allowing for a duplex. What we are is creating more of a tax base. That's my feeling on that. And aging in place is a significant concern. I know I wouldn't want to leave my house just because my driveway's like this, and there's 4,200 square feet that I live alone in and potentially in danger. So redevelopment of the Works Yard and other potential sites that are cited in our current OCP, which will be revisited when we do a review, and public consultation, of course, is going to be imperative to weigh in on what we as a community would really like to see. But some sort of smaller housing stock, entry level for a young family to be able to join our community, I think is really important for us to take a look at. And anything that does come into our village, it's important that we have an open mind. We listen to it, we can choose to accept or reject it, but if we don't hear them, then we have no idea what options are out there for us.
Thank you. Tanya?
Well, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I have not read this housing study. So I'm going to address this subject without having read that study. I'm sorry about that, but I do have some experience in this department. My husband and I bought an 1.5 acre piece of property at the end of Stewart Road about 13 years ago. And we have been trying for 9 years to subdivide 1/4 acre off of that piece of land so that we could build our home. Ideally, before that, we would have loved to have actually built multiple dwellings on that home that were green, passive homes, potentially smaller footprints for younger families to be able to move in the village. That's an impossibility for us in this village. And I think that's really, really unfortunate. It was a beautiful, large piece of land that could have facilitated that kind of thing, and we were turned down. Ultimately, we were forced to sell that piece of land. We couldn't afford to build on it. So being able to subdivide land is a huge priority for me here on houses that are land that's big enough. I think we need to do it in a respectful, sustainable way. I do think we need to reopen that OCP, take a look, get some feedback from our citizens to see how they would like to see that. But to me, those kind of pieces of property should be able to facilitate more townhouses. We have the most incredible people that live in our townhouses, and they offer so much to the community. I think we've got more volunteers in those townhouses than we do anywhere. We need more of that. We need to bring those people into our community. Our seniors, as I said, are being driven out of our community because they cannot afford to age in place in the current homes that they're in because of the difficulty with maintaining. So definitely we need to look at space to put some seniors housing. Water, huge issue. I just learned how big an issue water was for us. So we need to be tackling that. Tony, I'm probably doing you a disservice by some of the things I'm saying, because according to Tony, it's all about water. So we do need to make sure that we've got the water. Carl Burr had a study that was being done by UBC. It was a 30-year-long study. Carl, I think that study has been collapsed now, has it not? Yes. It's on hold. It's on hold. This is an incredibly important study that needs to be reactivated. This is going to tell us whether we have water for more housing. Right now, we don't actually know the answer, and everybody keeps saying we have no more water for more housing, but we actually don't know the answer to that. We actually do have quite a bit of water. It's just a matter of how to use it.
Tanya, your time is up.
There, my apologies. Here you go.
Being a moderator is a difficult job because I'm so interested in what you have to say, and we wish we had much more time, but trying to be fair to everyone. And Fred, we'll hear from you.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts on this. First of all, to my best knowledge, the hydrology study is still ongoing, so we haven't stopped on that. The other thing about this study, I've got two things to say about that. And these grant-funded things, they're proposed to us as they're free, but they're not really free. That was 100% grant funding for it, but where did the money come from? It came from a higher level of government. Where do they get their money from? Well, it's just the other pocket. So the other problem with that is when we have a study like this going, on paper it looks like it's not costing us, but it's also costing us staff time. And as long as they're doing something that's not really beneficial to us, like I think that housing study was, they're wasting our staff time, and it's got to stop. The other thing is there was factual errors in, or maybe I shouldn't call them factual errors. There was a concept in there that they were talking about people's houses that are underutilized, and I thought, well, who determines how a house is underutilized? I mean, Deidre and I have been in the house for 43 years now, raised our 5 kids. We're still in there, and it's just the 2 of us and our dog. We're quite comfortable in our home. I don't want to get kicked out. I mean, more dogs. Yeah, more dogs. Hey, there's an idea. Sorry, more dogs, yeah. Yeah, no, the other thing too is we got so much invested in our time in that place. Davey's been working on a garden for 43 years, and it's always a pleasure to come home and see it. And we're not going anywhere. We love it here, and we're quite satisfied. But I don't want somebody coming in from the outside and doing a funded group to tell me that we're in the wrong house. No. Thanks.
Thank you, Fred. Well, you've all had a chance to respond to that question. Thank you. And now we're going to turn our attention to question number 2, which you're already all aware of because you sat through it when you heard the mayoral candidates respond to it. But the first, Michael, you'll be first up, and I will read the question again so that everybody's clear. And again, the question is, given the infrastructure deficit identified in the asset management plan, how would you propose to fund future asset replacement?
Thank you for the question. I would propose, under serious fiscal prudence, including zero-based budgeting, we need to have a serious review and control of spending on projects. We need to look at the year-over-year pattern of tax and spend that has been in place in the village, and we need to roll that back. We need to use local expertise, including the incredible financial knowledge that we have in this community, to look at every aspect of our village financing and look for the efficiencies and look for how we can ensure that each dollar is used to its best advantage. We need to review the costing of projects and the repeated hiring of consultants, which has increased the cost of projects significantly. And we need to review the desire of the community for the various projects. So it's critical that we look at reallocations of funding as needed in terms of prioritization. We need to look at unnecessary projects such as the Lions Bay Connector. We need to look at what is actually involved in the Lions Bay Park, what consultation has actually occurred. As far as I can find, the original plans for the Lions Bay Park were the original input was in 2017, which led to a plan in 2018. The council then set out to find grant funding to have it go forward, but I don't know that there's been village input. There has been input from the works manager, but I don't know what other input and digging through the files, I've not been able to find anything recent. So I think that the plan, which has just been provided at a cost of $89,000 within the last month or so, that plan needs to be seriously reviewed because it's recommending expenditures of over $1 million. Whether we're getting them, whether that's at a 25% funding or not, it's still a huge amount of money to the community, and we need to determine whether or not the community actually wants all aspects of that. And I certainly have many more thoughts on that, so thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Tanya?
All right, well, first of all, I think there's several different ways we can generate some money back into the community. We've already talked about potentially increasing our tax base with some sustainable, respectful new facilities or homes. I also think that definitely the spending on the projects, it's my understanding from people we've talked to in Brunswick Beach, who were the original designers of the beach project. They were paid consultants of the beach project in the beginning stages in order to get the grant money. Then new designers have been brought in, and now that entire project that was already designed has now been redone. So again, I think frugality and, fiscal responsibility, watching over how the money is being spent. It's not just about saying yes and approving it on the budget. Unfortunately, a little bit of micromanagement might be necessary. There are a few things to reduce some costs and put things back in the kitty. This particular hall, I come in here and teach once a week. And summer and winter, the heat is on when I get in here, and it's blasting and it's hot. And I usually turn that little key and turn it down. This is a very expensive building to heat, and I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it's hardly used anymore. Tonight is amazing. I haven't seen this many people in this hall for years. So another way to save some money. And I think that's, and staffing. I definitely think we need to have a good review of staffing, what staffing is doing, and how we can consolidate. Growing up here, I know we can't go backwards in time, but we had Mrs. Langford and Mrs. Pullen that ran this entire town. And we don't have that many more people. We had Calvin Grove in there at some point, but really, it is doable. We can bring this down. I know there's a lot of costs now that come along with everything that we do, but we can be more fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus. I think the key here is to stop spending money on projects that no one wants and focus on the absolutely necessary ones. We have crumbling infrastructure. We have water issues. The amount of money that is going to things that the community is rising up against is misallocated attention. We also can take advantage, it seems to me, hopefully, of the increased grant funding opportunities that might be available through our new rural status. And I think that's an important accomplishment that we might want to take advantage of. Again, we have got to stop behaving like a large municipality. Some might be forgiven for thinking that there's a kind of a Ponzi scheme in place, that we are having to keep increasing taxes and at the same time engaging in projects that no one wants without adequate consultation. And meanwhile, where's the money going? We have a top-heavy staff. Mr. Stone, you referred to the old days back in the 80s. Well, I haven't been here that long, but the early 90s, I think we had a village manager and people wore many hats. And we need to get back to that. We need to cut costs and run a tight and nimble ship. I just want to circle back to something else that I just mentioned, water. The hydrology study, what it essentially indicates is that we rely on overland water. Our storage capacity is very minimal. How are we going to accommodate, as we've heard from some people, all these additional residences if we don't have the water? What is more important than water here? If our power goes out, that's one thing, we can survive. But if our taps run dry, that's a disaster. I don't think you can get very creative there either. I mean, I run a private water system at a rural property up in the interior, and it is very costly. Increasing storage capacity, huge costs. What we essentially have to do is understand that we have we're tight on water, and that adding more residences, at least in any sort of extraordinary densification, is going to make our existing water problems even worse. So water, it's the most precious thing we have, it seems to me, and also for firefighting.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Ed?
I think it's a real difficult problem to solve. With being on the infrastructure committee, we saw the value of our infrastructure and the cost of replacement, to replace it. It's the gap between how much its value is right now into what it would cost to replace it is huge. So this isn't a small problem, and you know, on the tables here, there's a lot of good ideas coming up, and I think cutting back on useless expenditures is one of the big things. I'm not saying we should have Depression-era financing necessarily, but we certainly have to cut back. And it was mentioned about useless projects or projects that somebody else thinks that we need, but the majority of the people don't. Well, we don't need to do those. And I think the best way to avoid that is consulting with the public and communication, like we were talking beforehand. Like, find out what people really think of our ideas. I mean, if 5 people are sitting around the table and thinking, "Oh, this is great," then you go and present something and it says, "Oh, you're a bunch of idiots. What are you talking about? Nobody wants this." Well, don't do it then. I don't know. It's just, there's not much more I could say about it. I agree with a lot of stuff, what I've heard around here. Thanks.
Neville, you're next.
Yes, familiar, going last. It sounds like everyone said what you thought were good ideas already. You last. Oh, sorry, Norm's got a tougher job. As I said earlier, we have to look at both sides of the equations when we're looking at stuff. We need to come up with creative solutions, and we need to design for what is the best fit. Ron mentioned earlier something about the Bayview DWIP project, I think $2.9 or $3 million. It's a classic example of what we need to do in Bayview. We have a drainage ditch that has a rusty culvert in it. We needed to do some preventive maintenance, replace the rusty culvert, make sure the water kept flowing. And we have pipes in the ground there that need to be replaced soon. They're cast iron or asbestos. I think there's 2 pipes we need to replace, cast iron and asbestos. I think those ones are cast. That's what we needed to do. In the end, we ended up designing a best-in-class facility that we cannot afford. We have an underground stormwater system so that we can create a separated sidewalk. That's not what we needed. Nice to have maybe for some, but it's not what we needed. They're designed to change the curve of the road because we wanted to make it easier for the snowplows. And now we've got a project that's gone through 5 years of grant cycles and will probably never get approved, or might never get approved. And so we're going to have to go in there, break it down into smaller pieces, and find a way to fix the pipes that are about to start leaking. I agree with some of those sentiments earlier that people said about grants. Don't take a grant just because you think there's money to be had. We don't need to make up a project to get some money. You go bankrupt taking grants. Focus on what we need. I did have one other point, sorry, notes. Sorry, and just
you're
touch
nearing
on
your time.
I'm out?
You're nearing the end of your time.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to touch on something that Tanya said earlier about the beach park designer. Well, there was competitively bid process. If the previous designer had already designed the project, I would think he would have won the job because he could have done it for free. So we need to. Sorry, I'll just leave it at that. I was just commenting on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie.
Yes. Yeah, well, I don't have a whole lot more to add for ideas. Obviously, we need to keep our spending down. I can comment on the opportunities with grants. And yes, there's been comments that there are some projects that are not wanted by the majority of the village. That is actually not something that we know, because we have not given a tangible proposition to the public to either accept or reject. So as for the Lions Bay Connector, I did vote in favor of the concept of it. I haven't seen what that actually looks like, so I can't say that I don't want it. If the majority of the residents are not for that, well then that will be that. But sometimes it takes a bit of money to find out what you want, what you don't want, and if it is something that people do see as an improvement to our neighborhood, it'll be long-lasting and it'll add to the value of living here. So fiscal responsibility, unfortunately, we have an infrastructure levy that was put in place. It has to stay. We're not unique for Western cultures with our crumbling infrastructure. Everybody in this kind of age group of cities is facing the same thing. So it's going to be a hard road forward, and we need to be open to all kind of creative solutions. Look for grants that will fix something in the ground so we can replace the pavement at the same time. So fortunately, we have a very good team that are successful with their grant writing, and that's really all I have to say about that. Infrastructure is a tough one.
Thank you. And Norm.
Thanks, folks. For those of you maybe don't know what the infrastructure master plan is, it's essentially a roadmap for repairs that are coming up down the road, and it's sort of a projection of what those repairs might cost us. The fact of the matter is our infrastructure is sort of, it's deteriorating, and deteriorating infrastructure requires more maintenance and more attention. So what we can do is we can look for grants that sort of fit the scope of what we want to do. The governments, they put out, the federal government or provincial government will put out a grant that speaks to certain objectives that they have. It may not meet our objectives 100%, but it gets us part of the way there. So we can't turn down these opportunities. And in order to be eligible for those opportunities, we actually have to have some money in the bank. So the infrastructure fund, it's actually creating opportunities for us. So by having that money, we can leverage it. We can turn $250,000 into $1 million and actually do something fairly substantial. You know, I don't want to be stuck in this thinking that we have to settle for sort of just the baseline. You know, I think we can dream a little bit bigger, and we can actually improve our infrastructure. A perfect example would be the above-ground PRV chambers. You know, those were somewhat contentious, but the reality is those take half as much maintenance. So that's a place where we can start saving money. And as we look to future infrastructure improvements, we have to keep that operating cost in mind, because that's actually the most expensive part. The capital that's subsidized to almost 75% is a small bucket in comparison to what it costs to maintain that piece of equipment for 25, 30, 40, or 50 years down the road. So we need to think smart, and we need to think long-term down the road. So when we're replacing our aging assets, we replace them with assets that are lower maintenance costs. A perfect example would be the wastewater treatment plant in Kelvin Grove. That is a piece of infrastructure that didn't get planned for. That is a replacement that cost that neighborhood $1 million that they got hit with a levy. That's actually poor planning in my mind. And we want to avoid those kind of situations by having a bit of a contingency built up, and by putting ourselves in a position where we can take advantage of grants and do some really interesting and important work on our infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you, Norm. So all of the candidates now have had an opportunity to respond to those two questions, and thank you very much. Some great ideas there, and it's very enlightening. We're now going to move on to the next section, which is questions from the floor. And again, this will be random draw, and Janine has already dipped into the bucket and come up with the first name. So this person will come forward and raise their question with a councillor candidate. David Shore. Is David Shore still here? No, he is. Oh.
So this question will go to an incumbent. Why don't we go with you, Nora? As we all know, the world is facing financial pressure, and most are acting responsibly. While other communities chose to freeze expenses, Lions Bay General expense grew by 24% in just the last 3 years. And this administration further chose to fund projects such as the beach park, which I can't believe had an $89,000 report. We still haven't got anything dug. An $89,000 report is very close to the original budget for this beach park 6 years ago, or the beach washrooms. We've also got the CLAT building, the PRVs, and many more, which are all started with reasonable budgets that spiraled out of control, pushed by outside consultants. It's often said that Lions Bay doesn't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. So my question, this and at least a dozen more examples of overspending all happened while you were at the helm. If you're elected, what will you do differently going forward?
Thanks for the question, Dave. I think I'm going to look at this a little differently in that a project typically has a scope attached to it. So when we go out to the community, we recognize that there's a project that the community wants, for example, the beach park. And my understanding is that there was a beach park committee that set the scope for that project. And that scope was set in 2017. And I understand that drawings were produced back then, and those drawings were taken to the ICIP grant application. And we decided to dream big. Why not get that entire wish list that the Lions Bay Beach Park Committee put together funded? That's exactly what staff did. We gave them that direction. Try and get a grant for everything that's on this wish list. Doesn't mean we have to commit to everything that's on that wish list, but we got the money. I think we got something like $785,000. I understand that's a big sum, but it's driven by what was asked for. And my understanding is the Lions Bay Beach Park Committee consulted with residents. They didn't consult with residents? Okay. Interesting. Okay. Right. So where we're at now is that we have an opportunity in front of us. And my understanding is that people are excited about this beach park improvement. They want the new place. Well, I'm sorry, is this how this works? Is this how this works?
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, there was a question asked of the candidate's responding. Can you please give them the courtesy of having uninterrupted time? Thank you.
So my understanding is that in talking to families, like the Dars, for example, that are well connected within the community, that families that have children, that this is an exciting prospect for the community. And maybe that's just a shift of thinking, right? And some people want to dream a little bit bigger, and I think that's okay. And by applying for these grants, all we do is we create opportunities. We haven't spent the money yet, right? We can, this final beach park layout will come to the community for input. But I do think it actually speaks to a lot of people. Yeah.
So the way it works is that all the candidates have been given 3 wild cards. If anybody wishes to an opportunity to respond to that same question, indicate now, and we have 1. Neville? Okay, you can use your wild card. Come up.
I'll just stay on this topic of the beach park and grants again, because I do think it does explain a lot of the things we do wrong. This village hall we're standing in now, many years ago, had a similar committee that dreamt big. Can anyone remember the fantastic hall we were going to have? Yeah, that we couldn't build, couldn't afford, but designed. Well, that's what goes wrong when you dream big and you don't right-size your designs. The Lions Bay Beach Park has some of that in it as well. And don't forget, we are paying $270,000 for that. $270,000, that's our share. And if we went with a simpler project and halved the scope to what we really needed, then we'd be paying half of that. And we'd have another $135,000 to fix a road or fill in some potholes. So we've got to start right-sizing things. The other problem with these dream big is we never leave any contingency in them, because we go out, get these grants with this wish list of items, and then we expect it to build them. And then we have the budget problem. We have a 100% funded firewall project next door. We have a serious problem trying to keep that under budget. That's what we need to do. Right size, think of what we need, and fix the most critical things first. Yes, it'll be nice later when we have some more time and budget and money to go do some nice to haves, but let's do the need to haves first. Thank you.
At this point, I don't see anybody holding up a card. Oh, I do. Michael.
I don't believe that anyone in this community has any difficulty with dreaming big, but the challenge here is whether or not there has been significant and acceptable input into the project at this point in time. It's impossible to find out what the scope is at this point in time, where it's come from, what the input has been, but yet an $89,000 contract has been let. So I'm hearing an argument, well, we have to spend money to find out whether we want it. Like, for example, in the Lions Bay Connector, they have set aside $49,000 for the Lions Bay Connector at this point in the July meeting, and authorized in the last meeting $12,500 of spending. And this is for a project that nobody understands what it is. And so I don't accept that we need to spend money in order to create a concept for people to decide whether they want it or not. You start with the concept. Are you interested in the concept? Yes or no? If you are, then you move forward. The Lions Bay Park can be a spectacular, beautiful, tremendous addition to our community. And that will be by consulting. The young child area will be based on consultation with the young children's parents. The areas that are specifically of interest to people, they must have input, and funds were raised a number of years ago. There was a fundraiser for $27,000 was raised to upgrade the beach house, and it has never been upgraded. So the delays have been unacceptable. Things should have been done earlier. The park itself has fallen into disrepair, and that appears to be purposive on purpose and by design. I have to think, because, for example, the Laurie Beck Memorial is currently scheduled to be knocked down. And if you look at it, the ends of some of the beams are rotted. They need to be trimmed off and perhaps copper wrapped, something like that. But there is so much wisdom and so much passion in this community to have an amazing community that we must be tapping into that on an absolute regular basis. So consultation with those directly affected.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Jamie wants to use her card as well.
I don't really want to comment too much more. I just wanted to raise a point of clarification that the funds that were raised, the $27,000 that Michael's speaking of, were earmarked for the Aaron Moore Memorial Playground. They were never slated for washrooms or any other purpose than to improve the actual playscape.
And Fred.
The issue of consultation, I completely agree with, but the other aspect about this with projects getting out of hand is what I said in my opening thing. We need to reconsider how we manage these projects. No more starting projects before the bottom line is known. No more designing as we go, as this opens us up to projects creeping, causing the original concept to be exceeded. Projects should be planned well enough in the beginning before putting them out to bids, and I think that would solve us thousands of dollars if we could do that.
Just want to make note that it's now 10 o'clock, and I single-handedly made the decision that we might be prepared to go to 10:30, but I also will turn to all of the candidates and the audience. Are you wishing to go further? That's a yes, no. That's a mixed answer. Well, if I'm getting a sense that the candidates would like to invest a little bit more time while you've got an audience, and so we'll move on. And anybody that feels that they have to leave, I guess they will make that decision. Let's try another question from the floor. Helen Watterson. Is Helen still with us? Grab another one, just in case. Just checking, is Helen here? Helen Watterson. Okay, we can always come back if, oh. John Westcott. He had a question for the Mayoral candidates. Is John here? No? I have another one. We'll try one more from the floor. Because we haven't had many questions, really. Is Ruth Simmons with us? Simons, pardon me.
So we like to follow the lead of our community, and I think they speak into us. Yes. With their feet.
All right. It's been suggested, candidates, that if there, it seems like the questions from the floor have kind of diminished because you've provided so much information already, perhaps. The next part of the program will be go to the 1-minute closing, and what we could do is, with everybody's consent, and it's been suggested, extend that to 2 minutes for each candidate to close. Is there consensus around that? You okay? All right. Well, if that's the case, then let's move to closing comments, and Fred, you're the first up.
I'll be brief. I think I've said all I need to say. Thank you.
Good speech, Fred. We enjoyed that. Jamie, you're next.
Well, thank you, Fred, for setting the stage, because I was sort of going on the same train. Thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I will be knocking on your doors. Quick note, you will not see a sign up for me. I just can't, in good conscience, produce something that I'm going to drive to a recycling depot. But I will knock on your door. I'll leave a card with my cell phone number if I don't catch you, and please call me if you have any questions. Take care.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you. The village requires fiscal prudence to control and direct council spending for the best and most desired outcome for our village. We must actively seek and incorporate community input and consultation to inform our decisions and ensure buy-in by our citizens. We must value, recognize, and promote volunteerism, continue climate initiatives, and protect Howe Sound. Lions' spirit and culture and emotional as well as environmental well-being depends on how we steward our community and the larger community within which it lies. Staff must be directed by informed, researched, community-supported council decision-making that is inclusive, transparent, and mutually respectful, while respecting our valued official community plan. I am committed to respond to these needs and providing the leadership required by our village to move us forward. There has been quite a bit of animosity out there. It's been a wonderful evening tonight. But I would like to say, in a world currently preoccupied with polarization and diminishing of others, Lions Bay can be the first in elevating the debate, acknowledging and understanding our differences, and seeking resolution while celebrating our common values of truth, dignity, and respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Neville.
I too will try to keep it brief in the interest of letting everyone get home and won't go to the speech I'd prepared. I have got some brochures at the back, and I am going to be knocking on doors, and I'd ask people to take them and read my platform. My slogan is "Our Village, Our Way," and by that I mean we need to find solutions that are a good fit for our unique community. We are a unique community. The solutions that fit our neighbours are not ours. They won't work for us. And on that note, I hope to see as many of you can. I'm knocking on doors. For those that know me well and I know where you live, I won't be knocking on yours, but please give me a call to discuss any issues. Thank you.
Next, we have Norm.
All right. I'm going to keep it brief as well. I guess in closing, I'd just like to remind everyone that we're all neighbors after all. So choose the person that reflects your wishes for the village and the community. My parents taught me to be good stewards for the planet, to help instead of hinder, and to work hard. That's what I would bring to council. So I'll do my best to advocate for you. I'll do my best to advocate for the elements of our community that have no voice, which is our assets and our infrastructure. And lastly, I'll do everything I can to preserve our environment. I'm an environmentalist at heart. It's what I do for a living. So thanks for your time tonight.
Marcus.
Thanks for coming, everyone. I just want to say that residents have repeatedly said that they don't want to live in an urbanized community. I think we have detected sort of two different versions of our future here. One would see us having more urbanization, more development. The degree to which is open to question, I guess. And one that would rather see less of that. That's the one that I stand behind. I am frankly terrified at how casually some people say they want to open up the OCP to see what level of density we're comfortable with. I think we've already said as a community that how comfortable or uncomfortable we are with that. The important issues, spending, the integrity of our watershed, both in terms of pollution and fire danger. We, I think, are very vulnerable on this front. We need a fire bylaw to help regulate traffic into this sensitive area from our lands. We have people going in there and making fires, and you know, a fire could just wipe us out. Our water security, fire safety are very important. The elephant in our room, the highway, tens of thousands of vehicles daily, commercial steel shipments thundering through day and night, the speeding, the noise, and the pollution. I think that these are things that we need to seriously address, perhaps work with other communities nearby who are affected similarly. I think it's serious stuff. It's hard work. It's not the occasion for a popularity contest. Let's focus on doing the work and always keeping an open door and remembering who we work for. Thanks so much.
Tanya.
Okay, I'm going to close this off. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you to Mayor. Thank you to current council for all that you have done. I'm pretty sure that this is a completely thankless job much of the time. I need you guys to know that you're appreciated, all of you, and thank you for what you've done. And same thing with our staff. We've got a lot of people, both sides, whether it's the staff saying how badly they're being treated or it's the community saying how badly they're being treated. We need to be respectful of one another. And I will do my best to bring that into this council if I do get elected. Also, I'm hoping that there's more transparency because there's not a lot of transparency in some areas, and so gossip forms. And people make their opinions about what's happening because we don't have all the facts. So be transparent to the community. That's going to be a big part of it. The park, that was really easy to solve, that we didn't even have to go through the planning stage. We could have sent out, you know, an information to all of the people in the village to get feedback beforehand, before we had gone down that process. So I'm standing up today because I'm not just going to stand behind a keyboard and shoot stuff out on Facebook and Instagram about how disappointed I am with things that are happening. I'm going to put myself out there and try and make this community a better place. So if you do vote for me, that is what I will do. I will try to make this place a better place, better than when I found it. And if my children decide to follow in my path and come back and have children here as well, I'll know that I've done the best for them. So thanks very much. Have a good night, everybody.
Well, I guess that brings us to the close of the evening, and I personally would thank each of the candidates for their strength and willingness to put their name forward and stand for public office. I have members of my family that are doing the same on the North Shore, and I know what it takes to do that, and I give you all credit for doing that. To everybody from the community that showed up tonight, I only wish that we had more time because I know how much more each of our candidates has to offer and to say, and I know other questions that didn't get responded to, but again, it is past 10 o'clock and I think we've pretty much come to a close, and so again, thanks very much for coming out, and it's been a very good evening.